A wounded, exhausted man runs through the jungle. The leg hit a tree trunk. The fugitive tripped over it and fell, and someone's footsteps were heard behind him. The man didn't have time to do anything before he was pulled deep into the forest, from where a loud roar was heard. Samson started the broadcast. He greets the viewers. The day the audience has been waiting for has arrived. A blogger on a desert island. This is not a production. Everyone is live, and here are the participants of the survival show. VTuber managed to gather a group of similar blogger friends. The girls laughed when they heard that Samson considered himself a big shot in the streaming community. They have to survive 2 days and 1 night on the island. This is not a picnic or a party. There are no people on the island, no help. Everything is for real. They will have to sign papers agreeing to these conditions. Renouncing a body is a very serious document. So what will you have to do then? The survivors will leave the island completely different, and they will have to improve both physically and mentally. Samson is in charge here, and there's no other way. What a sour face. Pull yourself together. He is spoken to by an elder, so he must be treated accordingly. This is Hyunmin, a VTuber whose subscribers may have seen him beat up a man during an alcohol-fueled broadcast. Samson studied with him at the same school. Then the muscle man was shy and respected him. A donation has arrived. It's time to come up and express your gratitude to the sponsors. Hyunmin literally glares at Samson. He clearly hates the blogger. The blonde will do anything for money. Mr. Zhangfu, one of the channel's biggest donors, joined the chat. Wow, $1,500. What generous support for the project. What does the sponsor want? Mr. asks Hyunmin to show respect to him. Dude, this is an order from the chairman himself, come on. Give him a proper welcome. Okay, but that's too much. Stop bowing. There is something that the blogger heard from local fishermen. Viewers should also know it. People have been seen landing on the island, but no one has ever seen anyone leaving. This is all fiction, but the blogger is sure that those fishermen tried to dissuade him from visiting the island. He is not joking, so you should be careful, because no one knows why this happens. What, you don't believe Samson, but in vain, it's all true. If that's the case, then there's nothing else to do. Guys, put your phones in the bag. They will be cut off from the outside world, so communication will not be necessary. The blogger said there was no staging, just wild nature and a group of survivalists. The live broadcast first glitched and then ended completely. The end was planned a little later, most likely due to poor reception here. The situation is the same for assistance messengers, and messages are also not working. Then you'll have to get out your camera and start filming right now. Why did Samson throw away their smartphones? This move wasn't discussed in advance. What kind of improvisation was this? Viewers continued to write that the project was a staged sham, and that it was necessary to take a decisive step. They managed to get 50,000 views and about $10,000 in 1 hour of airtime. It's possible that such numbers will no longer be seen, and they are thinking about their phones. If the project is successful, participants will be able to afford not only phones, but also cars. Before we continue, we need to make sure Hyunmin isn't upset about the past. Samson resorts to blackmail, knowing that the boy's mother is now in the hospital, and the treatment requires payment. And Jinsu has to carry the things, as he is the youngest among the whole group. Seo-hyun is worried whether the rumors about people going missing in the local area are true. Of course not. There is no one here. How could such a thing even occur to you? The island is quite large, and perhaps there are strange creatures lurking in it. This will be great. We will be able to shoot unique content for VTube. And nearby lies the gnawed body of that very fugitive. Tahe was tired of walking. How long could he wander through the jungle? Why go so far? Daku announced that they would be sleeping here today, which Jinsu clearly didn't expect. Girls and boys sleep separately, don't they? Seo-hyun had already taken a seat next to her partner. Samson wants to make sure the footage is captured, but he shouldn't stop there. It's very hot in the forest. The body requires water. Seo-hyun is too close. Tae asks to move away, and it's so stuffy. She apologized and asked if she needed something to drink, but as she walked away, she showed her true colors. Minsik stared somewhere, his face flushed like a young girl's. He stares at the beauty in real life. She seems truly perfect. The girl definitely didn't just fall for him. It was sympathy, a non-verbal message. If she's so beautiful, then why did she start streaming in strip chats? Apparently, money drives her crazy. One of the assistants is going to go get a battery for the camera, although Vonsik went to get it recently. He still went to get the battery. The road was not easy. His foot hit something plastic. The lamp, where did it come from? Means Vonsik is somewhere nearby. Why is he throwing equipment around? When he arrived at the place, the picture he saw amazed the guy. Something red. Was it blood? Terrible thoughts began to rush feverishly through his head. Who could do something like this? Meanwhile, a monster appeared behind him. Hearing a noise behind him, the operator turned around, his pulse racing. It seemed strange, but there was no one there. What kind of idiots are they? Where are they bringing batteries is really that hard? Daku sent Jinsu to find the lost souls and bring them back. Vonsik came straight out to meet him. Samson is unhappy that the two could have missed each other. They are definitely not trying to make fun of him. They came to a clearing full of red spots. This is definitely blood. Damn, I need to call the police. Samson yelled at the others to shut up and for Vonsik to turn on the camera. The guys are shocked by the filming. What he's saying. It's unknown whether Songyun is alive, and the blogger is thinking about the video in such a situation. But the VTuber is already counting the money. Objections are not accepted. No one died. Everyone must calm down to keep the situation under control, otherwise panic will take over their minds. Something like this rarely happens to anyone, so what a chance they had. The materials may not only be useful for them, but also serve as evidence if they have to go to the police. What happened cannot be reversed, so why not use it to your advantage? Hyunmin disagrees. There is no point in going further. It is unknown what danger may await them. Songyun could have been attacked by a tiger, but Doku claims that this predator is not found here. Samson promises that the group will only explore the area for an hour and then return to the beach. There is nothing to worry about. Still, the threat is too great to ignore, and even the potential benefits do not outweigh the risks. Hyunmin should stop arguing. The situation is under control. The decision is not up for discussion. The rest stood aside, saying that they also didn't want to film, but that's not how you become a successful VTuber. Samson is confident that videos from the island will bring him a lot of money. So-hyun, after some hesitation, trusted Doku, while the others found something interesting. There are clear footprints on the ground. Jinsu is scared, which means there is someone else on the island. The blogger still insists on his own. Enough of this nonsense. It's time to shoot new material. He greets everyone and informs them that there were some problems during filming. One of the team members went to get some equipment. This is what they saw when they were looking for him. They also came across someone's tracks besides his team. There may be other people on the island. The situation is getting more tense, but Samson made a promise to his subscribers. He will put his life on the line to prove the video's veracity. Doesn't the blogger think that the group has gone too deep into the local jungle? The forest really turned out to be bigger than they thought, and Vonsik was supposed to take a beautiful photo. They reviewed the resulting material after an hour of filming, and suddenly, behind the leaves of the trees, they saw some kind of structure, and they were very scared, thinking that there was someone dead there. The whole group asked Hen to get out of there quickly, because everyone had a bad feeling. But he shouted for Vonsik to go and film further. Vonsik didn't want to do it, but Hyun insisted on a short shoot, and he himself rushed forward towards this building. The whole team followed him, and through the half-open door they saw that the building was used for military purposes. Upon returning to the beach, Samson was supposed to call for a ship, but they had to hold out for a day until it arrived. If Hen had known that everything would turn out like this, he wouldn't have agreed to come here either. But Hen didn't know this, and he was also very scared. He already went out of his way to make sure everyone got along with each other. He wanted to film the footage as quickly as possible and get out of there. But suddenly the others saw something terrible behind his back. It was a huge dinosaur with a bloody mouth. Trying to escape from this monster, they all ran inside the military building. They managed to close the door behind them, but the dinosaur was rushing inside, and this was very scary. The boys tried not to go crazy from the horror they saw. Hen tried to find the positive side of things, and thought about what would happen when they returned. But not everyone shared his mood, and they told him that he shouldn't go there. The others saw that a major conflict was brewing within the team, and they tried to calm Hen down. She insisted that everyone came here voluntarily for their own benefit, and he asked the others not to shift the responsibility onto him. Hen got really angry and shouted that anyone can make mistakes. Kim Hyunmin stood silently as if he had swallowed his tongue. Kim tried to stop Hyun and prevent a fight from starting. Tahi tried to calm everyone down. These pointless arguments would have led nowhere anyway. It would have been better to think about what to do next. Hyun taunted Kim to go outside and take a look. Kim So-hyun was very scared and asked what to do now. Minsik heard some sounds outside the door. Hen asked him to open the door a little and take a look. They decided to shift this matter to Kim Jinsu, but the door didn't want to open. The others began to get angry about this situation, and they decided to help and open the door with their joint efforts. But even with everyone working together, they couldn't move the bolt. It looks like they won't be able to open it by force, and they decided to go further into the building. On one of the walls it was written Side B, so on the other side there should have been Side A. But they didn't know what could be waiting for them inside, and it was very scary. And a proposal was made that not everyone should go on reconnaissance, but rather send just one person. But I immediately remembered horror films, when in such a scenario people began to die one after another. And Hen led everyone forward, filming everything on his phone. He couldn't help but film everything he had to go through. It looks like they are now stuck in some mysterious bunker, and this was not a montage. After all, it was unclear who would build such a structure on an uninhabited island. Suddenly, Sohyun's legs began to hurt badly and she couldn't walk any further. But they had no time to rest, because if they returned late, they would be late for the ship. But the girl's body was overtired due to stress, and she could do nothing about it. But they were all in the same conditions, and they were all very tired, and there was no point in whining. But the girl did not consider herself a whiner and asked not to go too far. She started complaining about Tahe for being too strict, but perhaps they were all irritated due to fatigue and stress. Appa shouldn't have gone too far either, because in times like these, everyone needed to stick together. But perhaps it was the girl's fault, because she took everything to heart, and they decided to take a rest for just 5 minutes. They had to think about how to get out of there, because if everything worked out, then they would have a real jackpot in their hands. Their ship was due to arrive at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so there was still plenty of time. Suddenly, some unusual bird came out of the darkness of the corridor towards them. She looked cute enough and even let me touch her, but then in the darkness, Jinsu saw a terrible discovery: human remains. He ran towards the others, screaming. But suddenly the remains disappeared somewhere. Jinsu began to justify himself by saying that just now, there had been a strange animal and a severed human arm. But he got a slap in the face for an inappropriate joke, because everyone was already scared. And they did not wait for him and moved on. And the guy ran after them, screaming. The corridor led them to a huge reservoir. On the wall nearby, there was the letter A written, and a small passage was visible. The guys began to speculate that they might be in a building that belonged to a huge government project. On the wall nearby, a passage with the inscription S was discovered, but the whole group headed towards passage A, as planned earlier. Suddenly, one of the group members noticed the strange animal again, and they began to look at him. Hen decided to take a picture of this animal for the audience, but the animal looked cute enough. Minsik was from the village and thought he knew how to handle such animals. He stamped his foot loudly and shouted at the bird unknown to them. But there seemed to be something wrong with this bird, and he stamped his feet even louder and harder. And Samson laughed and continued recording the video. The others tried to stop him, because the bird looked suspicious. But he insisted that this bird simply hadn't seen people yet, and he decided to show the animal how dangerous people can be. Minsik hit her with the rest of the pipe. Suddenly, the same birds began to emerge from different directions, one after the other. They surrounded the group from all sides. A little scared, they decided to ignore them and move away. But these animals pursued them without leaving a single step. This pursuit frightened the boys even more, and they ran to get out of this hole as quickly as possible. Suddenly, they saw a bird with a human hand in its beak. This spectacle shocked everyone, and the boys realized that they were surrounded by these animals on all sides. There was nowhere to run. One of the birds let out a loud cry and received a blow to the head for it. The other birds, seeing this, began to scream angrily and attack the boys, and they received one blow after another. There was no second to lose exit. C was the closest route to salvation. For the sake of the lives of some, others must sacrifice theirs. Monsters are unfamiliar with the feeling of compassion. They are ready to destroy all living things in their bloody path. Any weakness now could cost the life of each member of the team. It appears that not all victims are destined to reach rescue. The monsters are very close. They are not going to leave these unfortunate people alive. In such an environment, people can turn into monsters. They are capable of doing a lot for the sake of their miserable lives. Samson's face was literally twisted with fear and anger. The little coward clearly had no intention of sacrificing his life for the sake of others. From the nasty words, he immediately starts to act. Hyunmin's life is the last thing on the scoundrel's mind. But the monsters aren't going to retreat just like that. Such a fabulous feast is absolutely not to be missed. Only one flimsy door now separates this company from death outside. Everything is teeming with hungry monsters. But even in such a situation, there is something good. Their friends seem to have survived. The unfortunate man is now safe. His life is a true miracle that only a few people are given. Samson, in turn, does not take his eyes off the survivor. Does he really suspect something? Despite such great luck, Hyunmin is still wounded, and could very well die from such blood loss. Everyone rushes to help except Samson. Even in such a situation, he tries with all his might to attract attention to himself. But to his great regret, no one has time for this cowardly shorty right now. What was more important now was Hyun's feat. The guy truly deserved such attention. The short man was clearly irritated by Kim Jin-soo's enthusiasm. The boy doesn't understand the reason for such a strange reaction at all. Hyun is a hero, and heroes should be proud. But not everyone knows how to recognize the exploits and victories of others. There are always those who disagree. The shorty seems to be extremely offended now, and all the attention to Kim Hyunmin is just too much for him. Envy sometimes completely clouds the mind, and the envious person is no longer capable of adequate thoughts and actions. The whole company is completely shocked by such statements. But now is not the time for showdowns. But Samson doesn't agree with this. All his words now sound more like desperate delirium. The guys have no other choice. They will have to play by this arrogant guy's rules and move on. But finding a way out is becoming extremely difficult. Everything around resembles the most terrifying horror films. Even the vegetation here has taken on an extremely hostile appearance. Just touch it and everything around will attack. What a disgusting place. Samson, even when facing death itself, demands attention to his pitiful person. The locations in turn become even more frightening. Is there really no end to these horrors? And it seems that only Tai is trying to find at least some kind of solution, and soberly assesses the situation around him. Minsik, in turn, is not going to miss such a chance and is in a hurry to meet the beautiful lady. But she doesn't seem to be interested in communicating with him at all. Luckily, this Minsik doesn't know how to lose and completely ignores refusal. To his great regret, the girl's opinion had not changed at all. She was still not interested in him at all. But even such a rude refusal could not break the boy's narcissism apparently. He will never admit defeat. Such conceit, unfortunately, cannot be broken by a simple refusal. Moreover, he will never leave those around him without invaluable advice and bragging rights. The poor guy's joy completely distorted the reality of what was happening. But the real picture is far from heavenly. Everything around strongly resembles the scenery of a horror movie. Only Samson sees the positive in everything, and again inadequately assesses his capabilities. But everything is not so colorful. Even the plants here look extremely hostile. It will clearly not be easy to deal with them. But Samson is not given to understand this in his thoughts. He is an invincible hero. Even the most insane people sometimes have a voice of reason, and the wounded Hyun had to become that voice. The question is whether Samson will be able to listen to him. Nobody wants to take risks, and hierarchy comes into play. The weak always suffer more than everyone else. Jeans has no choice but to obey these empty-headed people. Something terrible is happening in these bushes. It is extremely dangerous to be near them. But no one pays attention to this, and Minsik just won't leave the tormented girl alone. The plants mercilessly attack little Jinsu, and the frightened boy is unable to cope with them. Samson couldn't miss such a chance to show himself, but it looks like he's not going to save Jinsu. He mercilessly films all the boy's hellish suffering on camera, all for the sake of fame and recognition. Kim, meanwhile, is almost completely consumed by this monstrous plant. The pain is already completely unbearable and the boy is losing his last hope of salvation. His hands now look more like a bloody mess. But even so, Samson is little interested in the boy's suffering. He continues to mercilessly pull Kim out of the bushes. It would seem that at the last moment Hyun comes to the rescue and miraculously saves the boy. Then he hurried to free his comrades from this deadly trap. Hyun saved everyone again. That's the real hero. Although Samson didn't seem at all impressed by this new feat, he was once again made to look like a complete fool. What a shame. The mere sight of Hyun made this egoist grind his teeth in anger. He couldn't find anything better to do than take out his anger on Jinsu. There was no compassion left in him. Hyun is now his main target. The bespectacled man intends to bring this war to the very end. No one is allowed to humiliate him like that. Samson was lost in his memories, and there was noise in the school classroom. Clumsy Torre is late again. It's time to start punishing him for being late. As if nothing had happened, Lee Doku suddenly appears at the door, and apparently is not at all worried about being late. Even under the shouts of his classmate, his face does not lose its stupid expression. Food is an excuse for everything, and it is impossible to argue with such an argument. It seems that the conflict is resolved and Lee Doku is forgiven. Even then, the boy loved being the center of attention and being loved by everyone. This joy and fun warms the soul with the warmest rays of the sun. But Doku has always been nondescript. People like him usually go unnoticed. For Lee, school became a real test of strength. He fully felt his place in this life. With such appearance and reputation, it is almost impossible to become popular. In order to get any attention, Lee Doku had to spend a lot of time and effort. It was only thanks to his role as a funny fool that his classmates began to notice him. He was no longer a nobody. The goal was achieved. The unprepossessing boy was able to become popular, at least in his class. With this achievement came something else beautiful. A beautiful girl noticed it. She could lift anyone's spirits with just her smile, and hardly anyone could compare to her beauty. To become even more popular, Samson only needed to take a management position. But every fairy tale ends sooner or later, and the new student Kim Hyunmin has ruined all of Doku's plans. He took from Lee everything he had been striving for a long time. Is this really how it will end? There turned out to be too many candidates. It will be very difficult to choose. This new guy is completely pinned on poor Lee Doku, as if mocking him. Everyone is crazy about this new guy. Lee has once again become an empty space for those around him. Now Kim Hyunmin is the life of the party and the most popular guy in school. This impudent fellow is not even particularly smart, and Doku has no idea why he was so loved. He achieved in a day what Lee had been trying to achieve for years. The poor boy found himself completely alone. and could only silently watch the complete collapse of all his efforts. Nothing could save her from this curse. Hopes and dreams crumbled right in Lee's hands. His last hope was shattered when Kim Hyunmin took away his only love and the most beautiful girl. The anger came out in one huge stream right in the face of this scoundrel. Why did he even think that he had the right to take absolutely everything from Lee? The beloved didn't even try to explain herself. She brazenly defended this traitorous offspring. All Lee Daku could do was leave and let Kim Hyunmin take possession of everything he had. Despair and injustice forced the unfortunate man to give in. It would be difficult to compete with such a competitor. Everything in life sometimes has to be changed. Unfortunately, this is inevitable. This is how Lee Daku became a blogger and dedicated himself entirely to his quirky blog. He spent all his gloomy days in front of the computer screen and learned to live only for the camera. Real life remained somewhere in the shadows. The memories that flooded Daku came to an end. Before him stands the one who stole a whole year of his efforts. How vast this place is, as if they've been here forever and still have no sign of an exit. Hyunmin noticed that there was electrical wiring on the ceiling. It is quite possible that you can tell where the door is from it. The guy worked part-time in the fire service, so he is familiar with the intricacies of laying communications. Seo-hyun feels better now that she has someone in the group she can rely on. Samson is beside himself with anger. He wants attention. They are in an unknown botanical section, wandering for quite a long time. It's time for an interview. We need to film more exciting material. Minsik played along with Doku, saying that the setting was impressive, but also eerie. Samson hoped for stronger emotions, because there was a wounded man among them. Minsik continues to pretend awkwardly, offering Jinsu a handkerchief. How much he wants to leave the impression of being a caring comrade. Tae said that she trusted the blogger, which is why she found herself in this situation. If it weren't for Hyunmin, things would have been much worse. Seo-hyun started to hint that Tae liked Hyunmin since she was thinking about him in such a situation. Samson has no choice but to maintain the humorous atmosphere himself. Seo-hyun doesn't let up, sarcastically teasing the beauty that she most likely likes a beautiful male body. Tae turns the tables on his interlocutor, who is apparently looking at Hyunmin, even though their lives are in danger. It's strange. They're on the edge. A couple of people have already died, and So-hyun is thinking about men. Seo-hyun doesn't consider herself mentally tough. While others are trying, she cannot cope with her fear, so she is a burden. Daku tells the camera that there is no need to worry, you just need to believe in him. Minsik confirms that he is a real gentleman with them. The blogger encourages people to subscribe and like the video. The masks fell from their faces. Seo-hyun did not pretend that she was scared. The blonde is still thinking about how he looked in the frame, having forgotten where he is wandering right now. Later, he asked Tahi if the girl was okay. The guy tries to establish contact by asking how old she is and what her real name is. The beauty doesn't want to continue the conversation, just to make the annoying guy leave as soon as possible. She turns her attention to Jinsu. His wounds are indeed serious. Just as Tae was about to show pity for the victim, Minsik approached them, telling them what a weakling Jinsu was. There is quite a lot of bruising. If it is very painful, then you should not hold back. Jinsu was very surprised by such attention to his suffering. Suddenly a call rang out. There is something ahead. Everyone should look at it. The heroes have found a way out, but they still need to get to it. There is a frightening picture above. Some creatures are hanging on the vault. It's hard to see who it is from below. It's high and dark. Daku tries to look at them on his phone, but only sees that the creatures are sleeping for now. They are also winged, so I hope not to wake them up. Who knows what such monsters are capable of. Tae is not ready to take risks. The direct route is dangerous. It is better to find a detour. Daku is not happy about the prospect of wandering through unknown territory. There is no other way out if the door is just a stone's throw away. He asks Minsik to capture the pioneer crossing the suspension bridge. He was brave and determined, wanting to keep up with Hyunmin in the eyes of others. It's easy to say, but hard to do. My legs have stopped obeying me, but there is no turning back. Every journey begins with the first step. But no, one of the posts was so rusty that the screw came out of the hole with a loud noise. Daku was able to walk to the exit. It was important for him to show himself to be a worthy opponent to Hyunmin. He waves his hand to the others. The heroes step onto the crossing, looking around warily. Tinkerbell stopped abruptly and saw a monster in front of her. The monster approached the girl, who was frozen with horror. It was unclear what to expect from the reptile. Minsik couldn't stand it, picked up a stone and threw it into the water. The winged creature responded to the sound by turning its head in that direction. Hyunmin is determined to solve the problems in one fell swoop, since the monster hasn't seen people yet. The beauty immediately stopped the hero. If he killed one, his fellows would react to the noise. The blonde agrees. Maybe it really would be wiser to distract him. Suddenly there was a clanking sound, and the sections of the bridge Maybe it really would be wiser to distract him. Suddenly there was a clanking sound, and the sections of the bridge began to separate from each other. We need to go urgently before the crossing completely collapses. Monsters flock to the sudden noise. There are more and more of them, and suddenly one of the creatures bites Jinsu on the hand. They smelled the scent coming from the boy's wounds and the reptiles pounced on him. Confusion ensues, the heroes panic, and creatures fly around them. Hyunmin, succumbing to this, swung his axe and hit the bridge. Minsik, finding himself in the water, noticed many bodies inside the tree roots. He opened his mouth at what he saw. Fortunately, Hyunmin pulled it up. Minsik immediately informed the others about the dead bodies. Hyunmin tries to calm him down, urging him to hold on to the bridge. Frightened people can see anything, but under the structure they are relatively safe. Where is Kim Jinsu? The guy is nowhere to be seen. Where did he go? Hyunmin immediately dived into the water and was convinced that Minsik was right. The bodies grab the victim and pull them down. Are corpses capable of such a thing? The hands grab Hyunmin himself, and his partner moves deeper and further away from him. The others are scared that the daredevil hasn't surfaced yet. It is unknown whether they managed to condemn both of them to death. But Hyunmin managed to snatch Jinsu from the hands of the corpses. Is everything okay with the guy? How is he? Meanwhile, the reptiles hover above them, unable to sense the people under the bridge. You can sneak to the exit under this structure. You need to be quiet. Kim So-hyun is frightened by the words about corpses, and she is unable to overcome this fear. Hyunmin, realizing that it was more important to save himself now, lied about there being no bodies. Samson was worried about the others, whether they would be able to reach the door, and finally they did. The creatures haven't spotted them yet. They need to get out of here quickly, and get out of here. As luck would have it, the door refuses to budge. Minsik joined Doku, but the mechanism responded with a loud grinding noise. The monsters rushed towards this sound. A whole horde of reptiles was about to overtake the people. Several creatures managed to fly after the heroes. Fortunately, once free, they soared into the sky, flying away from the group. Minsik looked at Samson with fear the blogger's phone ended up in the water. It was a tricked-out model with footage, in case it survived. The moisture protection did not fail, despite prolonged immersion. This time, luck was on Doku's side. Who in their right mind would demand up to $100,000 in damages over a smartphone? Very valuable footage, and aesthetically pleasing too. And how bravely he crossed the bridge. Once you've managed to get out, it's time to head to the shore without wasting any time. Dokun didn't think at all about Jinsu, who is now in very bad condition. The wounds are deep, the bleeding continues, and the temperature has risen. First aid is needed. The victim is not coming to his senses. What should I do? Samson thought it was impossible to stay here. The sun would soon set below the horizon. It is very dangerous to stay in the middle of the forest, where unknown creatures roam around. First of all, they need to go to the shore. The blogger doesn't care about one of the participants. Doku wonders if Hyunmin is ready to take responsibility. After all, he failed the fire service exam. How can you trust such a loser? Samson decided that now was the best time to put pressure on the one who had ruined his school life. Hyunmin only became furious when he remembered his failure in the tests. He grabbed the unpleasant guy's hand, not intending to let go. Doku also gave in to rage, but before he could hit, the guy pushed him away. Tahi immediately intervened. No fighting. There is absolutely no point in sorting things out. There is already a victim among them. Samson didn't calm down. They still hadn't explained everything about where Hyunmin had gone. The beauty turned around and said that it was time to stop. They needed to get off the island and not start fighting. Minsik is agitated. He has never seen the blogger so angry before. Samson is too heated up to stop at a couple of lines. He sends insults towards Hyunmin. However, Jinsu will certainly not be relieved by the disagreements within the group. Tinkerbell stood up for Doku. It was getting dark around them. They were in the middle of a dense forest. First, they need to find a safe place, but Tae doesn't back down from her opinion. Seo-hyun sees the model as a rival, but it's unclear in what way. No, she didn't say to abandon the guy to his fate. Now the girls are arguing, and as we know, this does not bode well. The blonde is desperate. Now is not the time for strife. Doku is taking over again. We need to help Jinsu immediately and get out of here. For now, bandage the wounds, and then look for another place. The wounded man will be placed on the blonde man's shoulders. Someone will have to carry him. Meanwhile, Tahi began to tear the bandage cloth. She carefully wrapped the torn piece around her right hand. The group walked away, but Hyunmin didn't move. Minsik can't keep up. He asks the trio to wait for him. It's hard to carry a wounded man alone. But they don't think about slowing down, and Doku only knows how to hurry. A little more and the blonde will be at his limit. He blames Jinsa for everything. Trying to shout to the others, he did not notice a large stone. But Minsik is still holding on. He can't abandon his partner. The Trinity had already moved on, without even looking back. Tae tried to reason with Doku that they needed to wait, but he was adamant there was no time left. However, Minsik is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, the hero tries to shout to Samson. His efforts were not in vain. The leader heard a human voice. Doku calls Minsik. He too should catch his call, and maybe even respond. Yes, the blonde heard shouting back. But he was very careless, not looking at his feet at all. There was a cliff in front of him. How many more times will he fall? Where is he now? There are many remains here, but the most terrible thing is not this, but the living monster. What kind of creature is this? How can I get away from him as quickly as possible? The guy managed to climb up to the ledge, and a man appeared in front of him. Just as Minsik recognized Hyunmin, an axe whistled past his head. The Trinity had been patiently waiting all this time for the straggler, who finally came out to them. Daku doesn't understand where Hyunmin came from, why he also came. The hero pulled both of them out of trouble. There was a whole mountain of corpses there, who told Hyunmin that he could come back as if nothing had happened. Minsik stands up for the guy. He was saved only thanks to him. And what? Samson could have come to the rescue himself. Hyunmin had forgotten who was boss before, trying to force his decisions. Hyunmin bowed down and apologized. This isn't enough for the blogger, as the guy showed up after all the stuff that happened recently. He humiliates Hyunmin by placing all the blame on him. This cannot go on forever. The hero must learn his lesson. The guy wouldn't be able to get away with it all the time, and it made Doku look like a fool. Now Hyunmin is here because he failed the exam and his video hosting channel is blocked. When someone clings to their pride, it looks very pathetic and ridiculous. What is the difference between the two? Daku decided that this was enough for now. Time was running out. It was time to go. How pleased he was. It wasn't in vain that he waited so long for the right moment. In the meantime, it had become completely dark around him. The leader again shifted the blame onto the stubborn man who had delayed them. There is light ahead, or so it seems. As we got closer, it became clear that it was an electric lamp, and perhaps there were other survivors on the island. Samson is scared, but he will have to spend the night in the building he found. A night in the jungle is definitely not safe. Lee Tae immediately objected, wondering if the blogger had forgotten what they had met in the previous building. Besides, Jeans is not getting any better, but on the contrary. She also recalled Minsik's recent discovery, a pit with a pile of dead bodies. Even if there are survivors, they may be unfriendly. Samson, without thinking twice, agreed the risk was too great, and the group set off to look for another place to rest. Nearby, they came across something resembling a dugout, but the roof was made of tree roots. They will have to stay here until sunrise. Minsik recalled the horrific scene when he came across a pile of corpses. Where are they from? Who were these people before? What is wrong with the damned island? And then Doku showed up and said he had some sudden business. Everyone fell asleep. The day was very long and scary. They also needed to rest. Hyunmin is not sleeping. The forest is really strange, and Jinsu seems to have woken up. He was muttering something when Hyunmin approached and all hell broke loose. Now this is not a man, but an unknown terrible monster. The body is deformed, as if others appeared in it. Hyunmin began to desperately beat the mutant. Seo-hyun became a witness. Suddenly he heard So-hyun's voice. Why was he yelling so much? It was all because of a nightmare. Samson and Minsik disappeared somewhere. The girl could not find them nearby. How could everyone fall asleep in such a situation? Someone had to stay on duty. Tahi assumed that the monsters were to blame. Then why didn't the others disappear? There were no signs of a struggle. Then Jinsu stood up, saying that the two were going to film the footage. Is the guy okay? When did he wake up? How did he find out about the filming? Jinsu was awakened by the whisper, but he didn't pretend to hear the conversation. An hour passed, and from that moment on there was no trace of them. Most likely, both went to the building they discovered in the evening. Is it really justifiable to risk your life for the sake of a video? A blogger should be concerned first and foremost with saving the group and not be so selfish. Tahe is tired of reckless actions. The couple should wait only until dawn, no later. Tinkerbell disagrees. The boys can't be left alone. They need to go looking. These two didn't care about the others, so why worry about them? A vile act is unforgivable. Even the thought of it is monstrous. So Sohyun really is reckless. Here Hyunmin intervened. He will go in search of the lost heroes. No, they can't separate. It's unknown where that couple is now, whether something happened to them or not. If you return without them, no one will pay. It will all be in vain. Is money really that important when their lives are at stake? Tae told Hyunmin that now it became clear to her why he needed Appa. Hyunmin became angry when he heard those words. Their conversation was interrupted by their comrades who approached them at that moment. The boys asked where they had been. Doku replied that they went to the toilet. Tahi didn't believe it and asked why they went there together. Doku, a little confused, said that he was afraid to go alone. Tae noticed his confusion and added that Jinsu said they were going to shoot some monsters. Doku, after listening to her, said in a serious voice that he did not understand what she was talking about. Then he walked up to Jeans and asked him if he was sure he hadn't misheard. Jinsu, feeling the pressure that Doku had created, hesitantly said that he was the same as the others. Doku continued to insist that Jinsu might have misheard, reminding him that he was still sick. He asked if Jinsu had any evidence, adding that when a person is sick, many things can appear to him. Doku asked his comrades what they thought of him. Everyone remained silent. Then he told Jinsu that if he had any questions, he should ask. He added that there was no point in lying if he wanted to speak out, but Jinsu decided to remain silent. Doku looked at him and said that he looked pathetic. Minsik tried to smooth things over by saying that Tai had simply misunderstood them. Doku and Minsik managed to convince the rest of their comrades. Minsik looked at Jinsu with a smile. Meanwhile, Jinsu noticed the phone in Minsik's hands and snatched it. Jinsu angrily told Minsik and Dog that they were talking nonsense. Minsik became nervous and asked for the phone back. Jinsu, without hiding his anger, demanded that Minsik apologize to him. He pointed out that they had a phone which they said was not working, and added that he was sure of what he heard. Jinsu said not to be treated like some kind of psycho. He picked up a rock and brought it to the phone, preparing to smash it. Doku told him to do it, adding that if they didn't film anything, then Jinsu would jump to conclusions without even checking his phone. Jinsu replied that he would check it right away. Doku angrily told Jinsu to not make a mistake. Jinsu tensed up and said that now I will check whether I am mistaken or not. Jinsu turned on the video, but it turned out that it was not it. He checked the entire gallery and all folders. Jinsu couldn't find the video he was looking for and couldn't believe it. Dogu said he warned him not to make mistakes. Meanwhile, Minsik ran up to Jinsu and kicked him in the stomach. Minsik angrily asked where his respect for Hyun was. Tai asked Minsik to stop. Jinsu said that this couldn't be. He definitely heard that conversation. Doku told Minsik to stop and bring the phone. Minsik snatched the phone from Jinsu's hands. He handed the phone to Doku, who said that Hyun asked him to take care of Jinsu. Doku added that he had said that he hadn't filmed anything, and asked why it was necessary to let things get to this point. Doku and Minsik left, Doku adding that this was why Jinsu had to join the army. Minsik told Doku that they almost got caught. He added, "It's good that I hid the file." Doku asked if he had removed everything. Minsik replied that of course. Minsik asked if it was all real. Doku replied that he didn't know, but they definitely hit the jackpot. Dawn came and they moved on. After some time, the boys noticed the sea. Doku said that they still had a little time. It was good that they set out in the morning. The ship would arrive in 3 hours. He suggested waiting here. So-hyun reminded Doku that they had to pick up their things. Doku said that if you think about it, things weren't that far away. He added that no, it's not worth it. In movies, when you go for something like that, something bad always happens. Doku said that he could not take such a risk. He decided that everyone would stay here until the ship arrived. Seo-hyun agreed with Appa. Doku is glad that he will not die. Tae noticed that Jinsu was upset and went over to ask if he was okay. Jinsu replied that everything was fine. He apologized to Tae for making Samsung Hyun angry. Tae said that the man himself was unlucky and there was no need to worry. Doku and Seo-hyun recorded a video, happily announcing that they would soon be rescued. Tae looked at Jinsu's hand and asked if it was okay. He said yes. Then she asked to show his hand. After examining her, Tae said that she didn't look very well and asked if she was in pain. Jinsu replied that his hand was throbbing, but taking a deep breath, admitted that he didn't know. He added with a smile that they would soon leave the island and he would be able to go to the hospital. Their conversation was interrupted by Minsik, who, upon seeing Jinsu, asked how he could still smile if he was sick. Jinsu said he was fine. Minsik approached Tai and suggested celebrating when they got off the island. Seo-hyun overheard their conversation and said that she would also go with them. She added that she really wanted a cold beer. Minsik said that they would all drink it together. Seo-hyun asked if Doku would go with them, and he said of course, since they were all in it, and he promised to pay the bill. Doku approached Hyunmin and noticed that he had been chatting all the time, but now that they were leaving the island, he suddenly became silent. Doku's comrades asked him not to show off in front of Hyunmin, but Doku replied that he would still behave as he wanted. He asked if Hyunmin was ashamed, and added that he would keep an eye on his behavior. Doku commented on his face with a mocking expression. Hyunmin did not respond. Doku said it was a nice day, and advised me to make my face simpler. Meanwhile, Sohyun noticed the ship. Everyone was happy to see him. Only Hyunmin remained emotionless. Doku said that their vlog was finally ending. At the end of the vlog, he announced that they had survived and would soon get off the island, urging people to subscribe and like it. He started talking about notifications, but before he could finish, the ship exploded right behind them. The guys were shocked and didn't understand why this happened. Doku doesn't believe that this happened. It was the very ship they were going to sail on. Minsik doesn't understand why the ship exploded for no reason, and asks Doku how they will return now. Doku said he didn't know, and Minsik in a panic asked him to call on his cell phone. He tries to do this, while noticing that the battery is almost discharged. Doku said that if they could get the broadcast going, they would have a chance to call for help. Doku tried to catch the connection. Hyunmin approached Tae and asked if she saw the ship explode. She replied that she did not see it. Jinsu looked at the exploded ship in shock, realizing that now he would not be able to heal his hand. Daku was in a panic. The connection was still down, and there was only 5% battery left. Seo-hyun, also in shock, asked what they should do if the phone turned off. Tae ran up to her comrades and asked her opponent if he had brought a power bank. Seo-hyun asked where he was. Daku said that the power bank was taken by the club staff. He asked if any of you had brought a power bank with you, and where you had left your luggage. Everyone brought their power banks, but no one answered Doku's phone. Daku angrily asked where Kim Jinsu and Kim Hyunmin were. He saw them and ran up. When he got there, he saw Hyunmin removing the bandage from Jinsu's arm and saw how bad his arm looked. Daku asked in shock if the hand was really rotting. Hyunmin asked Jinsu if it hurt when he pressed it, and he replied that he didn't feel anything. Seo-hyun and Minsik also came up. Daku said in fear that if it starts to mutate, there will be trouble. He added that it needed to be cut off because it looked disgusting, and Jinsu was upset by these words. The guys asked what was wrong with Jinsu's hand. Daku interrupted them and asked if Jinsu and Hyunmin had power banks. Hyunmin said he didn't take it. Jinsu replied that his power bank was in his bag. Daku asked where the bag was and added that there was only 3% left. Jinsu walked towards his bag in a depressed mood. Minsik and Daku told him to stay away from them because he looked disgusting. They approached Jinsu's bag. Minsik snatched the bag from his hands. He turned it over and all the things fell out, but he managed to find the power bank. Daku and Minsik put the phone on charge. They were glad that they had the opportunity to charge the device, but Daku still didn't understand why the ship exploded. All of Jinsu's things were lying on the ground. He looked at them angrily. Jinsu approached the guys, and Tae asked to show his hand. She said she looked through the things and found a couple of medicines. Tae tried to calm Jinsu by changing the bandages and treating the wound. Jinsu tearfully asked if they could get out of here alive. He said he wanted to get to the hospital on time. Tae encouraged him by saying that thanks to him, the phone was charging. A stranger watched them from behind a tree. Daku called out to Jinsu and asked if he had charged the power bank. Jinsu was surprised and said that he seemed to have charged it. Daku showed the power bank, which turned out to be almost discharged. Jinsu admitted that he forgot to charge it. Daku said in a rage that only an idiot would forget to charge a power bank before a trip. He added that if he had charged the device, they would definitely have survived. Their conversation was interrupted by the guys who came to the noise, and Soyun asked what happened. Daku loudly declared that Jinsu had not charged the power bank. He continued to insult him, and Jinsu looked at him angrily. Minsik asked Daku what would happen to them now. Daku replied that they were stuck. Minsik and Seo-hyun panicked. Minsik approached Jinsu and said that if he had charged the power bank, this would not have happened. Jinsu asked why he was guilty. Minsik interrupted him and told him to shut up. Hyunmin pushed Minsik away from Jinsu. Minsik continued to say that it was the end for them, and Daku looked at the phone and remembered happy moments. He said he didn't come here to die. Daku shouted for everyone to stop. He admitted they were stuck but added they were still alive. Daku urged everyone to come to their senses and think about what would happen if they got out. He said that they would get the success they had been waiting for so long. Daku asked if they wanted to miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He stated that he would definitely survive and succeed. Daku reminded that everyone came for this, and nothing has changed. He said that we need to wake up and fight to the end. Daku approached the things. He said that they needed to take everything they needed, because it was unknown how long they would stay here. The boys also approached the things, and Minsik took the chocolate bars. Hyunmin took out a folding knife from his bag. Seo-hyun walked away from the boys to change her clothes. Tae looked at the photo of herself happily with Jinsu and Hyunmin. While they were unpacking their things, evening came. Minsik asked Daku what their next plan was, and he replied that we would sit on the shore. Daku said that he has 3 million subscribers, and when they realize that he is missing, they will definitely be rescued. He added that until then they would wait here, because going into the forest was stupid. Daku said that if they were in a manhwa, this scenario would be complete crap. The boys made a fire. Hyunmin was sitting separately, and Tae decided to approach him to apologize for yesterday's incident. She wanted to apologize for what she said about Samson to Appa. Hyunmin remained silent, and Minsik noticed that Tai was sitting next to him. Minsik brought sticks for the fire and roughly pushed Jinsu away. Jinsu gripped the sticks with all his might. A monster was looking at one of the boys from the bushes. Minsik, while collecting sticks, noticed a corpse in the bushes. He was frightened by what he saw. When he looked again, the corpse had disappeared, and he decided that he was hallucinating, after which he ran to the fire. Seo-hyun asked Daku if he had heard of this island, and said that there were reports of deaths from unknown sources. She added that dinosaur-like creatures live here. He said that he had been through a lot and could not just die. Daku asked Seo-hyun to trust him with a smile. Hyunmin walked up to the fire and told Daku that they couldn't stay there. Daku asked why they couldn't stay. Hyunmin replied that they were out of supplies, and that if they started a fire, they would be eaten by dinosaurs. Daku asked what to do then. Hyunmin suggested going to the building with electricity they saw at night to charge the power bank. Minsik asked with horror if they really had to go there again. Daku told Hyunmin that he was crazy and that staying here was the best option. Hyunmin replied that they would die of hunger, and it would be better to use this time to charge the power bank. Daku said that if that was the case, then he should go there himself. He added that if Hyunmin thought so, he could go alone. Daku said that it was safer to go alone. Tahi intervened and said that going there alone was suicide. Daku replied that he told him not to go, but if Hyunmin wanted to go, let him go. He said that if he wants to show how cool he is, then let him go himself. Daku asked why he looked like that. Can't you change your habit? He added that this is why other VTubers laugh at him. Daku said that during one broadcast, Hyunmin got drunk and hit another VTuber. Hyunmin got angry at these words. Tahi asked if he was really going to go alone. Hyunmin replied that he had to do it, but Tae said that it was dangerous. Hyunmin said that he couldn't just sit and wait, because they didn't come here to have fun. He added that he didn't want to be with these people at all. Daku noticed Hyunmin pack his things and leave. Seo-hyun asked if it was true that Hyunmin was trash. Daku replied that he was famous, but when he drank, he became aggressive, and he performed poorly on the broadcast. Seo-hyun said she couldn't even think about it because he helped them so much. Daku replied that she had just started streaming, so she might not have known, and added that Hyunmin had begged him for forgiveness on his knees. Minsik asked if Tai was going to go too, and Daku said let him go. He added that everyone who doesn't listen to him should be sent away, and Jinsu was perplexed. Minsik didn't like that Tae was going with Hyunmin. Minsik went to take a leak, and Daku didn't understand what was happening to this idiot. He said in a rage that she still chose a guy with a good body, but didn't even notice him. Minsik said that he seemed to be even taller than him. An unknown silhouette was watching Minsik from the bushes. Minsik was bitten by mosquitoes again. He noticed strange dead people moving towards him. Minsik, shocked by what he saw, quickly zipped up his fly. He was puzzled as to where the dead people had gone. A dinosaur appeared in front of him, with corpses hanging from its horns. Minsik ran to his comrades with all his might. 3 dinosaurs chased after him. The boys were shocked. Minsik shouted for them to run away, and Daku told Seo-hyun to hide behind him. As the dinosaurs approached, Daku lost all his courage and began to run away. Tae fell while trying to escape. Hyunmin managed to react and saved her. He met with the boys and ordered them to calm down. Hyunmin said that we need to run into the forest. Everyone obeyed and ran into the forest. Seo-hyun almost got caught by a dinosaur. A tree blocked the path and So-hyun managed to escape. After the dinosaurs left, Tae asked Hyunmin why he came back. He replied that he heard screams and returned. Seo-hyun said in a frightened voice that she recognized the dinosaur. It was a triceratops. Daku said that the dinosaurs were gone, and they needed to return to the shore. Hyunmin insistently replied that it was impossible, because the fire attracted dinosaurs. He added that triceratops live there, and it is much more dangerous. Hyunmin said that they had nowhere else to stay and offered to follow him. Daku called him a bastard. He said he wasn't going to follow him. As Daku was about to leave, Hyunmin grabbed him by the scruff of the neck. Daku demanded that he remove his hands. Hyunmin said he wouldn't clean it up, and if he left, he should leave the phone. Daku replied that he was being threatened, and that he was not going to die. He added that Hyunmin should go on his own, and they would not go with him. Daku noticed that none of his comrades followed him. He asked why they were standing and suggested that they go, but Hyunmin said that if no one was going, there was a reason. Hyunmin added that all his words and actions are absolutely wrong. Daku was furious at these words. He said Hyunmin crossed the line. Daku added that he asked for it himself, and anyone could have done it. He said he was tired of pretending to be an honest and understanding person. Daku stated that he knew better than anyone how pathetic Hyunmin was. He asked if he should tell everyone what an irresponsible asshole he was. Daku said that Hyunmin's mother was in the hospital, and he didn't have money for treatment. He added that he wanted to become a firefighter, but couldn't. Now he streams, gets drunk, and beats people. Daku called him pathetic and irresponsible, who only pretends to know everything. Hyunmin was furious at what he heard. He didn't answer, just threw his backpack over his shoulder and got ready to leave. Daku said with a smile that he couldn't even answer anything. Hyunmin ran up to Daku at breakneck speed, swung his fist, and hit him in the face. Daku fell to the ground and Hyunmin struck again. He couldn't stop beating him in the face. Daku asked him to stop. During the beating, Hyunmin recalled being called to the broadcast. There, the host greeted him as a famous VTuber, and also greeted social media star Yu Shirin. The host asked if it was true that he was training to become a firefighter, and Hyunmin confirmed. Hong Hal noticed that Halsey was shy, and Yu Shirin smiled sweetly. It was Hyunmin's first broadcast, so he was very shy. It was the first time so many people were looking at him. Halsey was popular for his workout videos, and many people knew him from them. He recently had a lot of people following him, which surprised him greatly one morning. Suddenly, a voice donation came in which Hong Hal was called an anchovy. Yusharine couldn't help but laugh. Finally, it was her turn, and she greeted all the spectators with a charming smile. The hour immediately became lively. Now it was time for her signature dance. The broadcast came to an end. Hong Hal briefly said goodbye to the viewers. He praised the team for their excellent work. Hong Hal told Sharon that she did a great job. The girl approached Halsey and said that he had done a great job too. Hyunmin took out his phone and saw a bunch of unread messages. He was still embarrassed by the attention he received after such a major broadcast. Among all the messages, he noticed a notice from the hospital that a bill needed to be paid. He sighed heavily and walked towards one of the doors, behind which he could hear voices discussing Sharon. Hong Hal was discussing it with his team and asked if the drinks were ready for the upcoming mukbang broadcast. When the game starts, he will only focus on the girl. He wanted to relax at night, and apparently Sharon was becoming a target. Hyunmin, who was eavesdropping on the conversation, was outraged by his words. Suddenly the door opened and Hal appeared from behind it. He asked Hyunmin, as if nothing had happened, why he didn't come in. Hong Hal and the team headed towards the studio. It was time to start. Hyunmin watched them go. The second part of the broadcast has begun, during which the heroes will eat, drink, and chat. The alcohol did its job. A little time passed and Hong Hal and Sharon were having a great time. The number of bottles consumed kept increasing. Hong Hal suggested playing a punishment game. The team behind the screen started pouring something from bottles into a large container, which confused Hyunmin. The boys started playing Jenga and Hyunmin, while taking out another piece, knocked over the tower. Sharon laughed at him because he didn't know how to play at all. Hyunmin drank all the penalty shots, which amused her greatly. Hong Hal slyly said that Halsey would have to be seen off, while Sharon and he would stay to play. Hyunmin was so drunk that he simply fell back and couldn't speak. He suddenly mumbled something that sounded like, "Stop, motherfucker." Hyunmin raised his head, looked straight at Hong Hal, and said that he knew what he was planning. The audience became excited, and Hong Hal tried to lighten the mood with an awkward smile. The managers approached Hyunmin, grabbed him by the arms and dragged him into the room. Hong Hal sat down and hugged Sharon, asking the chat to ignore her. But Hyunmin had other plans. He ran up to him, grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and raised his hand to hit him. Hong Hal, shocked, did not know what to do. The broadcast ended early. As a result, Hyunmin spent the night in a prison cell. After this, Hong Hal told him what would go to court, especially since the evidence was recorded on camera. But there was another option, 5001. Hyunmin stops running the channel and forgets about what he heard. Hyunmin looked at the phone screen with Lee Daku's number. He came back to reality, Hyunmin looming over the beaten Samson. He stood up and addressed all the guys standing around him. Samson was now kneeling in front of them. Hyunmin hit him again. He accused him of the fact that because of his decision, they had already found themselves in mortal danger more than once. Samson remained silent, which angered Hyunmin. He waited for an answer from Samson. Samson suddenly shouted something incoherent. Hyunmin kicked him in the stomach. Samson doubled over in pain and began to cough. Hyunmin told him that he would get out without him, and if Samson tried to interfere, he would get into trouble. And if he pretends to know him, Hyunmin will finish him off. Hyunmin approached Samson and ordered him to give him the phone. Samson remained silent, and Hyunmin hit him again. He didn't react and wasn't going to give up the phone, so Hyunmin raised his leg over his head. He almost hit him to finish him off. But Tae intervened in time and stopped Hyunmin. She asked him to stop and wake up. Hyunmin bent down and took the phone from the pocket of the motionless Samson. Samson grabbed it. He clearly really didn't want to give it up. But Hyunmin snatched the phone away without even trying. He turned to Sunghyun, Jinsu, and Minsu and told them to follow him. He needed to charge his phone. Just follow him. Nothing else was required. When the boys hesitated, he reminded them of what had just happened to Samson. They were walking through the forest, but suddenly Jinsu lost his balance due to pain in his arm. But Hyunmin made it clear that they had no time to rest. Tae suddenly noticed that Hyunmin was in too much of a hurry. He hadn't behaved like that yesterday. He explained that yesterday was a different situation. Sunhyun agreed with Hyunmin's plan. She also thought that they needed to find a place to hide there. Tae was indignant, because they didn't even know where they were going. Hyunmin looked at her strangely. She didn't want to obey him. This caused him to misunderstand. He reminded them what would happen if they did not obey him. Hyunmin turned around and said that in about 10 minutes they would reach the road. Songyun jumped happily after him. She told him not to be angry with them, because Samson was the same. But she was ready to help Hyunmin in any way she could. 10 minutes later, as Hyunmin said, they reached the building, which surprised Minsik and made Sungyun happy. Samson suddenly told everyone to stop. Everyone turned to look at him. He said that this building was different from the ones they had seen. Sungyun optimistically stated that it didn't matter at all. The main thing was that there was electricity. Samson insisted that they should not go there. Hyunmin asked him how much was possible. Samson lost his temper and shouted that they couldn't go there. His cry attracted an unexpected guest. A bird-like dinosaur emerged from the forest behind him. He picked up speed and ran towards Samson, but he was not the dinosaur's target. The dinosaur ran up to Jeans and opened its mouth. Hyunmin managed to push Jinsu away at the last moment, and the dinosaur's mouth slammed shut near the boy's leg. Everyone else ran to the entrance of the building. The dinosaur rushed after them. Everyone managed to run in and slam the door. Hyunmin and Jinsu were trying to catch their breath. Tae suddenly noticed that Samson was not with them. She was about to save him, but Sunghyun reminded her that they couldn't open the door. But Tae didn't believe that there was no other way. They couldn't just leave him there. Sunhyun coldly remarked that Samson would definitely survive on his own. Tae was furious at her words. Sungyun reminded her that when Samson went missing last time, Tae herself told her to forget about him. But last time he left on his own, and now he was in danger. Tae turned to Minsik for support, as she and Samson were close. But he did not help her, as he agreed that they themselves were now in danger. Then Tae turned to Hyunmin. He told her that Samson was most likely already dead, so there was no point in going after him. Tae was horrified by his words. Suddenly the door rattled. Someone knocked on her door. Tae was delighted, thinking it was Samson. Sungyun screamed for no one to open the door. The girls started arguing. Hyunmin suddenly felt something was wrong. A dinosaur's eye peeked out through the small window on the door. Hyunmin shouted for everyone to hide. At that very second, the dinosaur knocked down the door. There was no one in the room anymore. The boys were hiding behind the cabinets. The dinosaur suddenly sensed something. A huge clawed paw stopped right in front of the cabinet under which Jinsu was hiding. For a moment, a huge burning eye looked straight at him. A huge, toothy mouth opened in front of Jinsu's face. Hyunmin ran to the other side of the closet and pulled Jinsu's hand. The dinosaur climbed onto the cabinet and now looked down at them. Suddenly the lights went out. Samson, out of nowhere, pulled the switch. Hyunmin shouted for everyone to run to the exit. Sungyun and Minsu took off. The last ones to leave were Jinsu and Hyunmin. Samson stood and held the door. He wanted to slam it, but before he could, Minsu and Sungyun stepped back and pushed him. Samson turned around at them indignantly. Another huge dinosaur looked at them from the street. The boys stood in the doorway. Dinosaurs were approaching from both sides. It seemed that there was nowhere to run. The reptiles were about to jump on them, but then chunks of concrete fell from the ceiling and a huge Tyrannosaurus Rex face appeared. The Tyrannosaurus killed two small dinosaurs and began to approach the heroes. They ran back but realized it was a dead end. Suddenly Samson pulled the switch again. One of the rooms, the entrance to which was fenced with bars, lit up. It was the elevator they managed to run into. Samson reminded everyone that they survived because of him. Hyunmin slapped him. He did this because Samson closed the door or tried to do so. Samson held his cheek, pretending not to understand what Hyunmin was talking about. Hyunmin kicked him, angered by Samson's pretense. Tae intervened again and shielded Samson. Suddenly the elevator shook violently. Sungyun was seriously scared. Tae suddenly asked Samson where they were going down. He suddenly became gloomy and said that he knew about this secret elevator because he had already been here. Tae was outraged by his lie. Instead of going to the toilet, he went here. Samson indifferently noted that it was thanks to him that they ultimately survived. So we can forget about this lie. Jinsu for some reason looked at him with an uncomprehending look. The elevator shook violently again, and Sunghyun grabbed the bars with all her strength. Cages with red lights do not inspire any confidence. Suddenly, a roaring dinosaur's face emerged from one. There are a lot of reptiles, but while the indicators are on, the cages are locked. Wouldn't it be better to take the elevator and go back up? But first you need to charge your phone. Jinsu, huddled, wanders down the hallway in search of an outlet. He has never experienced so many looks on himself before. Where can I find a socket? The wiring is usually laid along the wall. You need to go to the end of the room. Beaks stick out through the bars. The dinosaurs just won't calm down. Hyunmin was right. The outlet was found. It works. The charging process has started. No power bank is needed. There is no time to waste. It is possible that in a few minutes those dinosaurs will no longer be on the street. Tae is worried about Jinsu's condition, who is feeling strange. Everyone is looking at him, their gazes literally fixed on the guy, and don't let go for a moment. These monsters have been watching him the entire time they are here. Seohyun suspected something was wrong when it became quiet around her. The reptiles no longer made noise, and Jinsu felt pain in his hand. The girl asks to show her the wounds. A scream is heard. The athlete needs to be called. Jinsu's arm is mutating horribly. She was horribly disfigured. The growths reminded Hyunmin of the scene he had seen underwater. What should we do? The guy has undergone special training. Can he provide first aid? Minsik says it's all elementary. Almost everyone goes through this in the army. However, all the athlete could squeeze out was the need for amputation. The rest were stunned by this news. Jinsu wants to make sure that his partner is serious and not joking. Hyunmin suggests examining his hand. The infection is spreading through it. A real mutation has begun, and most likely the hand is attracting reptiles. What is Hyunmin even talking about? What kind of monster bait is this? Sound-sensitive pterosaurs and other reptiles in the forest attacked Jinsu first. Even here they sensed something. The affected arm must be amputated immediately. There is no painkiller or anesthesia, but Hyunmin will perform the surgery quickly. Tae absolutely disagrees with this decision. Someone can't just go and amputate a body part. This was the only chance to stop the spread of the mutation. Otherwise the guy would lose more than just his arm. The hero also does not want to resort to extremes, but he prefers to try to save his life. Tae doesn't intend to back down in case he manages to stop Hyunmin. It's pointless, though the hero is already starting to get angry because they're not listening to him again. The light suddenly went out. What's going on? Has the electricity really gone out? Everyone is thinking about their own thing. Some about the phone, some about the elevator. Nothing was visible. After a few seconds, it was possible to see that the smartphone was nowhere to be found. Where did the device go? It was just lying there charging. Daku, that idiot is nowhere to be seen. No one else would ever think of taking the phone. Minsik and Seohyun are trying to shout to the blogger. Maybe he got lost or something. The sounds of shawls were heard behind the heroes, and Jinsu realized that if the electricity had gone out, nothing good awaited them. Sohyun saw a familiar pattern. It was Samson. But a moment later it became clear that the person in front of her was not human. A piece of Doku's shirt is covered in blood dripping onto the floor. Several dinosaurs sneak up on the people, surrounding them from all sides. The reptiles suddenly rush towards the heroes, and suddenly a light appeared behind them. The passage opened. The heroes quickly ran into it, and Hyunmin managed to notice the button. He hit the emergency close button with all his might. One of the creatures managed to stick its beak in, which was caught between the door and the floor. The guy was so scared that out of desperation he started stabbing the creature with a knife. Sohyun screamed. Everyone saw Samson's clothes. That means he died. Minsik thinks only about the phone. How to manage without it now. Where did the heroes end up anyway? Damn. Because of one idiot who prefers to do as he pleases, they are stuck in an unknown place. The chances of survival have become even slimmer, and they don't have a smartphone. Hyunmin repeats for the last time that it is necessary to do exactly as he says. And what should you do next when you find yourself in such a situation? How can you get out of it? The athlete is going to cut off Jeans' hand. The others turned pale. Tae jumped up to him, trying to cool the ardor of the angry hero. Doesn't the girl see that the dinosaurs follow them everywhere, finding the group by smell? The infection spreads further and further throughout the victim's body, and later it may be too late. In the current circumstances, they cannot waste a minute over one person. Tae is trembling with fear. She continues to persuade, but Hyunmin is losing patience. If so, then a reasonable solution must be offered. Otherwise, one will have to submit. These words apply to everyone without exception. The athlete prepares instruments and means for amputation. It's hard to imagine what Jinsu is feeling at this moment. His body is drenched in sweat. Minsik had to pull his hand even harder to stop the blood from flowing. It will hurt, but you have to endure it for the sake of the whole group. First, Hyunmin breaks Jinsu's arm, and there are heartbreaking pleas for the hero to stop it. Jinsu asks for forgiveness. It's his fault, so don't do it. He's ready to live with a disfigured limb. After a few minutes of screaming, everything ended. Minsik is still in shock. The operation was a success. Jeans needs more water and food to recover. Now it's time to rest, and then the group will continue on its way. The athlete said that they were all great, and then wandered off to the side. Tae, trying not to cry, asked how Jinsu was feeling. The girl glanced towards Hyunmin, who also turned around, and the camera was constantly following them. The nurses whisper to each other about whether the family paid the bill for the treatment. The woman is waiting for a call. It seems that her son still hasn't contacted her. She says nothing and sits, just staring at the screen. We can't delay the receipts any longer. The bill was issued quite a long time ago. This is the dream Hyunmin had while he was lying down to rest. Everyone fell asleep after the scene they had to endure. But not Jinsu, who can't figure out where he went wrong. Finally, he stood up and looked at the others. It's time to go. Seohyun constantly looks around, holding onto the athlete's backpack. She called out to the leader. Maybe they should stop. The girl was tired of walking for so many hours with an empty stomach. No, the rest was long, and they needed to get out of here as quickly as possible. Minsik is not resilient enough to walk for long periods of time, so he demands water from Jinsu. The disabled person does not react to someone else's speech, remains silent, with his head down. The blonde snatches the bottle from the sufferer's hand. The guy ate the supplies, so being stingy with water is too much. Tae is also quite tired. I wish I could meet at least some people. She noticed red stains on the floor and looked up. It's scary to imagine the horrors that took place here. Hyunmin, without flinching at all, ordered them to go there. There were dinosaurs behind them, and there was no other way. But there may be dangers lurking behind the door in front of them. It is better to have at least the slightest idea. The only thing the hero thinks about is his mother, waiting for a call and payment of bills. Therefore, he does not intend to hesitate in the face of the unknown. The heart beats wildly in the chest. The closer the finger to the button, the stronger. The door opened, and behind it there was a recreation area. This is the last thing you expected to see in such a situation. Apparently this really is a recreation area, and there are even vending machines. Minsik is terribly hungry. Seo-hyun better move away. He will do everything now. The hero kicks with all his might. Ooh, that hurt, Hyunmin suddenly whispered for everyone to be quiet. Look, there's someone on the sofa. Hyunmin carefully took off his backpack and slowly approached the stranger. A disfigured body. Who is this? What the hell is this torn corpse doing here? No, it's not alone. A pile of dead people stretching from the doors, some of them trapped. Some have visible bullet wounds, and one of the corpses has a machine gun in his hand. Seo-hyun screamed, Hyunmin, there's someone else here. The blonde guy steps towards Tae-hee and then makes a dash towards her. Then the athlete arrived and hit the stranger on the head. The blonde guy seemed not to feel anything, and then launched a counterattack. The blow was so strong that Hyunmin was thrown back a couple of meters. The blonde man approached the hero and began to stretch his hand towards him. But his target was not the man, but his backpack. Was he originally heading towards the bag? Who is this? Having sniffed the lifted load, the blonde man approached the girl. He lifted the backpack higher and asked to open it. The stranger said these words again, and behind him, Hyunmin gathered his strength to strike. But it was not to be. His attempt was thwarted with one hand. The unknown man now turned towards the athlete, asking him to open the zipper. Damn, who is this? Strong, fast, and very strange. This collar is the same one he saw on the bodies of the corpses that lie here. Hyunmin can't help but repeat his question. The natural answer followed, who are the people themselves? What are they even doing here? Forget it. Just return the bag back. Now the luggage belongs to him. Meanwhile, So-hyun carefully approached Hyunmin. Doesn't it seem to the athlete that the person in front of them is insane? He has a collar. He is clearly a local. Nothing else. What happened here must have driven him crazy. Tahi still hopes that the madman will tell them the details. However, he replied that he was completely unaware of the events. Minsik knew it. He was just crazy, so there was no point in messing with him. The white-haired man raised his head as if he felt something, and then suddenly ran away. You bastard, leave your backpack. Hyunmin shouts for the stranger to drop his load, and he reaches the ventilation grill in 2 leaps. The unknown person opened the passage, after which he turned around and said that it was dangerous here. The psycho simply took their things and ran away, closing the ventilation. Seo-hyun and Minsik are still shocked, asking them to abandon the idea of returning the stolen goods, especially since there is almost nothing left. The guy suggested that we take everything from the food vending machine and hit the road. Suddenly a squeal was heard from the passage, and then someone's footsteps. Is this really a monster? He is already opening the blocked doorway. Damn. Minsik is exhausted by monsters, and here comes another dinosaur. Seo-hyun pointed to another door. We need to run there. Wait, there is another option. To follow that madman into the ventilation. Hyunmin really wants to climb into that passage instead of running out through the door. There is no time to think. The die is cast. The grate is very high. How can an ordinary person get up there? Meanwhile, the reptile had already seriously damaged the door, widening the hole. How can you reach there? Who can do that? Hyunmin takes a running start and jumps. He grabbed the grate and with a sharp movement opened the passage, holding onto it. It's impressive, but it's better to admire it after they climb one after another. The athlete is already waiting. Minsik grabbed the guy's hand, trying to climb into the hole. It's strange that he went first, and the creature, seeing how its prey is running away, tries to squeeze through more and more zealously. There's only one Jinsu left. He needs to grab onto it. He was not very tall, so it was with great difficulty that he managed to take hold of Hyunmin. But how can he pull himself up? He only has one arm left. The athlete's hand is covered in sweat. Jinsu begins to slip. By this time, the monster had squeezed through the doors. Minsik is in despair. He screams at Hyunmin to leave the guy, otherwise they will all become victims. Once again, the image of a mother waiting for her son appeared in the hero's head. Tae rushed towards them and grabbed Jinsu's hand. If it weren't for her, the disabled man would have definitely slipped away. Everyone climbed in, the grate was closed, and the dinosaur behind it was roaring with frustration. Minsik can't take it anymore. They've encountered so many different reptiles. Maybe that's enough. Seo-hyun admires how the athlete managed to jump. They are all alive thanks to his strength. The blonde was actually holding the bars, but the girl could have handled the task herself. Then why didn't she do it? What an idiot, and even yelled at me to leave jeans. The one-armed man stared at Hyunmin, who felt uneasy under the intense gaze. Look, there's a blonde thief, a little further away, sitting and looking at them. He had to crawl after the stranger. but Jinsu sensed danger even before the dinosaur appeared. Everyone moved forward, but Jinsu remained motionless for now. An unpleasant surprise awaited them. The lower wall was made of bars, and underneath them there is some kind of frightening, disgusting abomination. What are these people, but why are their lower half missing? Why did you stop? Time is running out. We need to keep crawling. Minsik remembered what he had seen underwater, and began to tremble again. Suddenly, one of the creatures opened its eyes, the blonde screamed, and the grate beneath him collapsed. Before he could even comprehend what had happened, he collapsed along with Jinsu. The girls are terrified and try to shout to both of them. Are you okay, guys? Minsik has an injured leg. What to do now? Two of them are downstairs. What will Hyunmin do? First, Minsik should try to stand up. No, he can't. His leg won't let him. The athlete is only interested in the type that crawls further and further. A stalemate, one could have broken a leg, another is missing an arm, and the thief might know local secrets. The three heroes will follow that guy. The guys better take cover for now and think about how to get out, and he himself will return later. He tells the girls that it's time to move on. Come on, go ahead. They can't let the blonde psycho miss out. Minsik begs them not to abandon them. Is the athlete really going to come back for them? And what about Tae? How can you leave the boys in such a terrible place? They are both traumatized. There is no choice, just as there is no certainty that the lower part of the stroke will not start to break any minute. Indeed, the grate creaks. Its edge has already come off. Minsik loses hope of being saved, but Tae promises to return later. Damn, they actually left them. What is this place for anyway? It's too scary, and my leg is injured too. Minsik shouted to Kim Jinsu to help him stand up, but the guy didn't respond. Standing with his back to the wounded man and staring intently at something, Minsik began to get angry. He screamed even louder. He needed help. Jinsu finally heard him. He turned around and asked with a crazy look why he should do this. Minsik did not understand him. He thought that everything was quite obvious. He was angered not only by his companion's indifference, but also by the fact that Tai had left with Hyunmin. Jinsu looked at him carefully. He didn't regret anything. Minsik continued his tirade. He was angry at Hyunmin, who was pushing for justice, but ended up leaving them there. He was definitely going to get out of here and take revenge on all those who had offended him. Jinsu still had no intention of helping him. He just didn't want to. Why help someone who tried to leave him just recently? Minsik approached Jinsu, grabbed him by the collar of his t-shirt and began shaking him angrily. Jinsu couldn't stand it. He kicked Minsik right on his sore leg, and the boy screamed in pain. Minsik fell to the floor, clutching his leg. Jinsu looked at him indifferently. He didn't understand the resentment that was pouring out of Minsik, because he had just recently been planning to do exactly the same thing. Jinsu decided to speak out, his hand meanwhile reaching for the wrench lying nearby. Minsik began to understand that he was in a dire situation, and fear appeared on his face. Jinsu stood in front of him. He was calm on the outside, but there was madness shining in his eyes. He was holding a wrench in his hand. Minsik extended his hand in a conciliatory manner. He was seriously scared, and didn't understand what Jinsu was talking about. He started making excuses, humiliating Jinsu Samson, and cut off Hyunmin's hand, but no one heard him. Minsik screamed in horror, asking Jinsu to throw away the key. Jinsu didn't expect Minsik to admit his guilt. He raised his hand. Minsik began to shout apologies, but Jinsu didn't hear him, his hand raised to strike. Minsik begged for mercy and apologized. Jinsu lowered his hand. He got what he wanted, an apology. Minsik breathed a sigh of relief, but it was too early. Jinsu raised his hand again when Minsik turned away. An apology would not bring back his limb. The blow landed right on the head. Minsik fell unconscious. Jinsu dragged him by the leg. The unconscious body slid across the floor. All of its hair and head were covered in blood. Jinsu stopped and lifted Minsik's head so that their eyes met. And then he suddenly lowered it into the water and pressed. He held tightly and continued talking to Minsik. The body twitched, trying to get out, but it was already useless. Meanwhile, Hyunmin and the girls continued to pursue the blonde man. Kim So-hyun asked wearily why they were even following him. Hyunmin was sure that since their mysterious assistant was moving through the ventilation, he definitely knew something. Seo-hyun didn't believe that he knew where the exit was. He seemed crazy to her. But Hyunmin was adamant. They had to get out. Tahi thought it would be good to at least know what time it was. Suddenly a strange sound was heard from behind, which only she heard, since she was the last one to walk. Hyunmin finally crawled to where he wanted to go. The blonde man sat in the middle of a small room on a mat, with empty food and water containers scattered around him. He turned around and looked at those who had disturbed him. He did not understand why they followed him. Hyunmin approached him. The blonde shouted that he would not give up the backpack. But Hyunmin had no intention of taking him. He just wanted to know something. The blonde, like a child, continued to insist that he would not give up the backpack. Seo-hyun said again that he was weird. The blonde didn't want to talk, and Hyunmin resorted to threats. They didn't have much time anyway. Tae stopped him. and he calmly asked the blonde what his name was. She leaned towards him and introduced herself. She asked him if he knew what this place was. The guy replied that he didn't know. Hyunmin flared up and said that he had seen corpses with collars like the blonde one. The stranger tried to convince him that he really didn't know what this place was, and how Hyun B and Hyun S died. Nobody understood what this meant. He kept saying that the A Hyungs were moving separately. He didn't know what happened to B and C. Tae looked closely at his collar. It had the letter A on it. He continued to talk. The alarm rang and everyone started to come out. When it became quiet, he came out too. The heroes were perplexed. Tae asked if anyone was helping him. The blonde replied that he no longer did. Hyunmin said he finally understood what was going on. He recalled that when Minsik fell into the water in the garden, he said he saw corpses. They were apparently actually there, people entangled in some kind of plant. Something also appeared on Jinsu's hand, and the dinosaurs ran after him especially furiously. Hyunmin said that this place is a factory where dinosaurs are bred and then fed to people. He looked up. Perhaps something even more dangerous was waiting for them. So-hyun was horrified. Panic gripped her. She didn't understand how they would get out of here. Suddenly, A-hyun spoke up. He knew where the exit was. Seo-hyun walked up to him excitedly. She was very happy to hear this. But the blonde suddenly said that he didn't want to show it. He turned away spitefully. Hyunmin grabbed him roughly by the collar and lifted him up, threatening to kill him if he didn't show him the way out. The blonde looked straight at him and said that Hyunmin would regret what he did. This confused and angered Hyunmin even more. He remembered his mother. Hyunmin's fist tightened around the collar. Tae had a brilliant idea and promised A-hyun to open the backpack if he helped them get out. He suddenly turned sharply to her and asked incredulously if it was true. Tae said that she would definitely do it, but only if he showed them the way out. The blonde easily, almost without any effort, removed Hyunmin's hand, which greatly embarrassed him. A-hyun grabbed his backpack and walked away. Hyunmin's hand was strangely sore, more so than it should have been. The blonde crawled out into the ventilation, and everyone else followed him. He looked to the right. The exit was on that side, very close to the guys. They had already started crawling, but suddenly Tae stopped them and reminded them about Minsik and Jinsu. She said that they had to come back for them, because they were expected. The blonde agreed to return with them, but So-hyun was against it. The exit was so close, she wasn't going to take any risks again. Tae looked at her indignantly. So-hyun advised her to take off her rose-colored glasses. A conflict was clearly beginning between the girls. Tae said she understood what was going on here. She believed that they had an obligation to save them no matter what. Seo-hyun decided not to continue the argument. She turned to leave and called Hyunmin with her. Tae also turned to him. She reminded him that they promised to return. Hyunmin looked at both girls tensely. I remembered my mother again. He said he lied. They didn't have any strength to go back. Seo-hyun smiled triumphantly. Tae told them that if that was the case, they could go, and she will go after the guys. She turned to leave, leaving behind that she knew Hyunmin was going to abandon Jinsu by the ventilation. Perhaps it was all for the sake of salvation. But if Hyunmin wasn't going to take responsibility for Jinsu, why did he cut off his hand? She saw right through him and understood that he was doing all this only for his own salvation. Seo-hyun looked at Tae suspiciously and didn't believe her words. Tae returned to the hole where Minsik and Jinsu had fallen, stuck her head out and started shouting at them. They saw Jinsu. He raised his head at her. Minsik was nowhere to be found. Jinsu still had the wrench in his hands, blood dripping from it, and he told the girl that Minsik had abandoned him. Tae sighed in disappointment. She knew, of course, that's what he would do. She dangled her legs to jump down. Tae jumped down elegantly like a cat, but she landed not very successfully, hitting the floor. She asked how Jinsu was feeling. Jinsu asked her where the others were. Tae looked at him sadly and said angrily that they left just like Minsik. But Jinsu wasn't surprised by this. He was rather surprised that they were still alive. Tae reassured him, saying that they would definitely get out too. She said it was time to go, and from a pile of an incomprehensible, disgusting substance, a hand with Minsik's gold watch was sticking out. Tae looked up at the ventilation. She suggested going in the same direction. She approached a tall door. The electronic lock was broken. Tae examined it carefully. Someone had deliberately disconnected the wires. Jinsu suddenly asked her why she came back for him, since he was no use. Her answer struck him to the depths of his soul. She said that she could not leave him, because she promised to return. They believed that there was no need to be afraid to make decisions and avoid problems. After all, if you try, you can always find a solution, and then the sign above the door lights up. Tae smiled happily. She pressed the button to open the doors and saw someone she clearly didn't expect to see behind it. Samson, covered in blood, looked at the boys in amazement. He and Tae exclaimed in amazement as they looked at each other. She started yelling at him, asking where he had been, because everyone thought he was already dead. Samson responded by asking her where everyone else was. Tahe informed him that everyone had left. Samson suddenly, nervously, and quickly pushed them inside. It was necessary to close the door. He asked them if they had met anyone. Tahe didn't understand who exactly he was asking about. Samson said that some guy almost killed him. He barely managed to escape. He was surprised that Tae and Jinsu didn't understand who he was talking about. A couple of hours ago, when the situation with Jinsu's hand happened, Samson took the phone that they were trying to charge and ran away with him. But the huge bird quickly found him. He was quickly caught by her. She grabbed him like a toy by the back of his shirt. Samson, with a sharp movement, threw off his shirt, which remained in his beak, and ran. He ran into the bright doorway. Tae told about Ahyun. But Samson was sure that the guy didn't know anything, but was trying to lure them in to kill them. Tae didn't want to believe it, because Hyunmin and Seohyun went with him. Samson indifferently noted that Hyunmin deserved it. He finally noticed Jinsu's hand, or rather lack thereof. He immediately translated this into the fact that going with Hyunmin was a mistake for which Jinsu paid with his hand. Tae got tired of listening to this chatter and moved towards the exit. She called him a fool, which Samson didn't like at all. Tae turned to leave. He threw back at her that she was as hypocritical as Hyunmin. The girl stopped and turned towards him. Samson continued. He believed that now everyone had shown their true faces. He reminded her that she was there because the webcam was no longer making her money, and asked her to shut up. But Tae was not going to let herself be offended. She replied that Samson was too proud and was behaving arrogantly. Her words angered him, and he looked shocked, not expecting that anyone could contradict him. Tae continued to trample him into the dirt with her truth. No one took him seriously. He was pitiful in her eyes, and in her eyes everything was in general. She looked at him with disappointment. Samson became furious. He shouted that he had seen people like her, people who made money with their faces. They had no idea how long and hard it took Samson to earn what he now has. People like Hyunmin and Tae had no idea what it was like to work. Moreover, work honestly, as Samson did. He swung, ready to let his rage spill into the blow. But he didn't have time. The blow with the wrench was faster. Samson fell face down. Tae looked at Jinsu in amazement. Meanwhile, Sohyun in the ventilation said wearily that they had been walking for an hour and there was still no exit in sight. But Hyunmin believed that they did the right thing by trusting Ahyun. Finally, they came to a large ventilation grill with a yellow light shining from it. Hyunmin and Seohyun peered through the cracks in the bars. Dozens of people with collars were sitting on the floor in the large room. Ahyun lifted the grate and invited the boys to enter. Samson yelled at Tae, reminding her what she was doing. His words took her back to the past, to the store where she once worked. The boss tried to find out who was responsible for cleaning the warehouse, and Tae decided to take responsibility herself. The boss, hearing this, calmed down a little and ordered the girls to make sure that everything was clear today. He took Tae to the warehouse to talk to her. The boss asked her not to worry. He would report it to headquarters himself. The next request was strange. He wanted to have dinner with her. She refused, as she could not leave her younger children alone, and apologized. Tae turned him down again. She left the room and heard her colleagues talking. They were discussing her. They thought that her life was easier because she was beautiful. Tae was upset when she heard that she was being discriminated against because of her appearance. She had heard since childhood that she was beautiful, and girls wanted to be friends with her only for this reason. And the boys wouldn't let me pass. This was the problem. Love turned to hate when she liked a boy who her friend already liked. The girls hated her for this, spread rumors and whispered behind her back. Because of this, she had to stop communicating. And then even more conflicts arose. As a result, Tae, like a bone of contention, found herself alone. She had to limit her communication with everyone. Then everyone began to perceive her as a heartless creature. And no matter what she did, people always treated her as if she had ruined their lives. She withdrew into herself and spent the rest of her school years alone. At university, the attention did not go away. She still seemed ideal, smart, and beautiful to people. One day she came to the professor. He offered her some tea. At first she wanted to refuse, but he insisted, because this tea was brought from Europe by another professor. The professor finally told her why he called her, and Tae received an internship position. He suddenly leaned over and whispered right in her ear that it was he who had arranged it all. Tae wasn't stupid, and immediately understood what he was getting at. She jumped up from her chair. She looked at him with disappointment, and didn't want to hear anything else. The professor tried to stop her and present everything as a misunderstanding. Persuasion didn't work, and he started making threats. Tae was adamant. She was not going to talk to him anymore. She left the office, and the girls standing nearby began to whisper. A notification arrived on the phone, and a post was posted on the university website, which described the student's relationship with the professor. Dozens of disapproving glances were directed at Tae. She sat in front of the university council, and was informed that the selection process would be carried out again. It was certainly unfair. She went through it herself without asking for help. Tahi came to work. Her boss needed to tell her something. She had to work until the end of the month and then leave. The female colleagues smiled contentedly. Tahi returned home. Her younger children were waiting for her in the apartment. They greeted her joyfully, but she hardly reacted. Tahi opened the lid of the pot and the rice was finished. The children needed to be fed. It got dark. Tahi entered the room and slid down the door, her head falling onto her knees. A notification about the internship cancellation arrived on her phone. Tahi was exhausted. She had no strength left. She didn't give up and got a job as a loader. An adult man called out to her and asked if she was working too much. He offered her a bottle of water, but she didn't take it, citing being very busy. The men she worked with didn't understand her reaction to the simple offer of water. Tahi went to the sink to wash her face. I received a notification on my phone that the loan repayment period was about to expire. She came home and was now trying to calm the children down and get them to eat normally. The younger boy was screaming that he wanted a burger, that he wanted to eat like other people did. Tahi tried to explain to him that they couldn't afford it. The boy decided to throw a tantrum and forcefully pushed away the plate with his food, which Tahi had prepared. The older brother couldn't take it anymore and gave him a hard slap in the face. He was tired of whining. A scream was heard, but it quickly stopped after another threat. Tahi stood up and angrily asked them to stop. She turned to the eldest, Lee Shansen, and asked him to never hit her brother again. He stared at her in surprise, not understanding why she reacted that way, since he was protecting her. But Tahi did not appreciate his initiative. She shouted for both of them to go to their room. The girl sat down on the floor and cried. A note was pushed through the crack in the door. Tahi picked it up and unfolded it. The younger boy apologized and promised to never ask for anything again, and Tahi cried even harder. There was a knock on the front door. A woman stood on the threshold, and she asked with displeasure why it took so long for them to open the door. It was the landlady of the apartment. She reminded Tahi that she had not paid rent for 3 months. She said that if Tahi didn't pay this month, she could move out, and slammed the door. Tahi knew she couldn't give up, so she decided to watch a video about how to get a job. That's where she learned about streaming, and it got her interested. The next day she came to work. The loaders were glad to see her. They were amazed by her energy. Tahi smiled for the first time in a long time. While working, she looked at the girl streaming. Another notice about the loan payment reminded her of her unenviable situation, and she thought about it. Tahi thought that she worked all day for pennies, and the streamer earned even more just by communicating with viewers. The men working with her looked at the girl on the screen in amazement and admiration. That evening at home, Tahi found the agency's contacts, but she still had doubts. Someone knocked on the door. It was late, and Tahi was surprised. She opened the door and saw 2 men. They looked at her, introduced themselves as people from the bank, and asked if she knew Lee Min-soo. Tai replied that he was her father. The men said they had come to warn Tahi. She needed to pay off the loan, otherwise their next meeting would not be as peaceful. The door closed. Tahi moved away from it in fear. She thought that it was not time to give up. She told Samson all this, explained how terrible her first streams were, and how the company then terminated the contract, and how Samson showed up when she needed help the most. The wrench landed dangerously close to Samson's feet. Tae walked up to Jinsu and, putting her arm around his shoulders, tried to calm him down. She was calm and suggested that they all get out together. Hyunmin and Sunghyun looked at the room full of people with collars in shock. They didn't want to go there. Ae-hyun explained that this was Group C, and its members were quite weak. He got off the ventilation himself and helped Sunghyun. There was a terrible smell in the room. It seemed that all the people here were already dead. The heroes stepped very carefully between the lying bodies. The blonde hurried them. But the boys were indignant they couldn't go faster. Suddenly, one of the people lying on the floor looked straight at Sunghyun. She recoiled in horror. She took another step and stumbled, fell into a pile of lying corpses and screamed in horror. The rest of the still living people with collars, hearing her voice, began to talk among themselves. Hyunmin froze warily. The human voice triggered a wave of requests from the S-Hyungs, asking to be released. Sunghyun kicked one of them in the face out of fear. One of the S-Hyungs came up behind her and brought his face closer. Hyunmin hit him and the man flew back. This acted as a trigger, and all the other S-Hyuns began to cry even louder for salvation. They started getting closer and closer. Hyunmin started fighting back. People knocked him down and started pressing on him from above. A Hyun walked up, grabbed one of the S-Hyuns by the neck and easily and simply threw him back. He looked at everyone else and told them to get out before he killed them all. The S-Hyungs looked at him with fear. A Hyun grabbed the next one and smashed his head on the floor. The same fate befell those who followed. Blood splattered everywhere, and there was rage in A-Hyun's eyes. The S-Hyungs, who were watching their brothers die, begged the blonde to stop. They begged Hyunmin to help them. The carnage was like a mess. Everything was covered in blood. They were shouting something about the latest experiment. Hyunmin looked at what was happening in amazement. The S-Hyungs begged to be released. Some wanted to go home to their families, but A-Hyung was merciless. Hyunmin couldn't take it anymore and asked him to stop. A-Hyun froze, turned around and asked why he needed to stop. In his hands was a dead body. It hung motionless like a doll. It was time to go. Hyunmin took a step and one of the S-Hyuns grabbed him by the ankle. But Hyunmin calmly pulled his leg away and the guys left. Samson looked at Jinsu, who had hit him, in amazement. Tae asked him to shut up. He was going to hit her too. Samson did not calm down. He screamed that Jinsu was trying to kill him. But Tae cut off his flow of words, saying with a confident look that he was simply protecting her. Jinsu looked at her in amazement. He didn't understand why she was defending him. Tae asked him not to do that again because it was dangerous. Jinsu looked away in shame and promised not to do it again. Samson decided that this was not enough for him. He was waiting for an apology. This made Jeans furious. A new conflict was brewing. Tae stood between them and ordered them to stop. Now is not the time or place for fights. It is time to realize the full gravity of the situation. This bastard knows how to play the victim just in time. With each new step, the path to the exit becomes more and more confusing. Every move can take the lives of our heroes. There is just no other way out. I need to get out of this real-life hell as quickly as possible. The darkness around seems to swallow up all remaining hopes of salvation. Something very angry and hungry could jump out at any moment. Now the prey is cornered. A new dead end forces these unfortunates to face death once again. The only clues on the wall don't really provide any useful information. There is nothing at all in the building except for the two centers. It feels like it's not a building at all. Of two evils, it's usually better to choose the lesser, so it's worth heading to the security center. But it might be completely unsafe there. In any case, you need to keep your ears open and avoid getting into trouble. The architect of this building was clearly crazy to build something like this. This room looks more like a deep jungle. It's scary to imagine the size of this hellish meat grinder. Little Kim's gaze became completely empty, almost glassy. In addition, his hand began to acquire very strange additions, not at all typical of a human hand. The feeling of fear ceased to overtake him at all. It was as if he had lost himself and everything human. Kim's obvious aggression has become seriously annoying. Such changes in the boy's behavior could not help but hurt Samson. He could not forgive such rudeness. Kim's distraught face could frighten anyone. It's scary to even imagine what drives him and what he's thinking about. This madness can only breed equal madness in the restless Lee Doksu. The situation between them has become very tense, and it is unlikely to end without a fight. But now it's worth spending your energy on something more interesting. The strange passage was both alluring and frightening at the same time. Perhaps this was the only chance for salvation. Lee, in turn, completely lost his composure out of fear. The monster is about to catch up with us. We need to get out of here quickly. Even without the monster, this place is completely permeated with mortal danger. It seems that all the cracks and passages are not at all random. They were made specifically to catch prey. It's unlikely that you'll escape this prepared trap alive, so it's time to improvise. The huge bloody monster arrived just as the meal was about to begin, and was most likely very hungry. This big guy managed to scare his victim instantly. If this monster decides to attack, then our heroes will have no way to escape. But there are no obstacles to this, so sooner or later this monster will attack anyway. But going back now is not an option at all. There are several times more monsters in those jungles. We need to open this damn door as soon as possible, otherwise the meal will become very real. Fortunately, I already have experience in such matters, so it might even work out. She seems to have gone completely crazy if she is going to free this vile spawn. The sight of this colossus makes your blood run cold. It will not spare a single person. It goes straight to them and clearly does not want to make friends. The girl's body was instantly gripped by animal fear. This is exactly what the real fear of death feels like. Memories began to flash before her eyes like gunshots. It was they who gave me the necessary determination and brought me back to clear thinking. Lee, as always, rejoices at the most inopportune moment. Teasing this monster is clearly not worth it at all. While this fool is laughing at one, a second one is preparing to attack from the other side. Only nothing is stopping him anymore. And again, this mortal danger will never leave them in this building. Now you need to run away much faster. Otherwise you will instantly become part of the meal. We need to block all possible attack positions for this monster as quickly as possible. But the monster is clearly not ready to put up with this. He is very hungry and will do everything to catch the fugitives. It has monstrous strength and speed, and it is definitely impossible to stop it using conventional means. Lee's emotions are failing him again. The poor guy can't control his own body. But following his example now is extremely dangerous. Panic only creates chaos and forces us to act extremely stupidly. This fool is about to fall right into the jaws of this abomination. Now there are two of them, which means their total strength has doubled. Now this shorty is unlikely to survive and not become dinner for these nasty lizards. and his friends won't be able to help him in this situation. These monsters are many times stronger than even 10 people. There's no point in even trying to be a hero now. An ordinary person will never be able to defeat them. The monsters are ready to destroy everything in their path for this skinny guy. It looks like the lizards have driven poor Lee into a dead end. He won't be able to get out from under the rubble on his own. Despite everything, he still managed to survive, and this shorty is extremely lucky. Could this arrogant guy really take down 2 lizards at once? It's impossible. The jubilation didn't take long to come. This Lee Doksu was clearly not all there. But the reality is that there were 2 nasty mascaras lying under the rubble, but not at all dead. These creatures seem invulnerable to strong blows. It turns out that entire combat groups are being allocated to destroy these monsters, and it looks like they arrived just in time. Perhaps they will be the ones to pull our heroes out of this waking nightmare. But they are not at all in the mood for a nice conversation, quite the opposite. Lee, however, tried very hard to explain and establish contact, while Samson clung to even the slightest chance of salvation. But instead of an answer, I received a burst of machine gun fire. These barbarians clearly don't want to have a heart-to-heart talk. It looks like they have a specific order, and everyone will have to obey it. The strange chute lay peacefully on the ground, and apparently it belonged to the impudent boy Kim Jin-soo. Meanwhile, the masked guys were reporting some incomprehensible nonsense to their superiors. The boy was clearly involved in all of this, but he had no intention of admitting it. Kim tried hard to act like a fool, but his glassy eyes betrayed the brazen liar he was. That green crap belongs to that brat anyway. This little bastard apparently tried to feed Lee to these monsters. Their attack was clearly provoked by this green muck. No matter how much Kim tried to hide it, the truth had been known to both of them for a long time. But even so, this boy will not admit it. The shorty was barely holding himself back. The very thought of betrayal and assassination was driving the poor guy crazy. But the bastards in masks don't give a damn about these showdowns. They don't even try to be more polite. Everything around is covered with corpses in varying degrees of decomposition. It looks so disgusting. It looks like the building has been completely cleared of all monsters. In addition, an entrance to an abandoned ventilation duct was found most likely. Someone extremely unfriendly is hiding there. It looks like the masked guys have found something very important for their boss. The second part of the company, meanwhile, was forced to crawl through the ventilation like a gang of hungry rats. The strange boy is apparently not happy with such a neighborhood. His face displays genuine horror. But it seems he was unable to outsmart the guys. But Tahe alone can't handle these guys. No matter how you look at it, you'll have to help the lady. Getting out of this hole turned out to be completely different from what it seemed at the very beginning. And at the exit, a whole squad of armed agents was waiting for this sweet trinity. They need this strange guy, and they will definitely not let him go anywhere alive. The young man had no choice but to freeze in place and watch his imprisonment. After everything that has happened, these masked bastards dare to demand voluntary submission. The guy was able to dodge a whole burst of machine gun fire without any difficulty, without receiving a single scratch. This squad needs the specimen alive, so they are strictly forbidden to kill it. The young man doesn't waste time on trifles and attacks with full force. The lives of these bugs don't concern him. A squad of green ants was already attacking from behind, and they all needed one person. What vile creatures they are. They are still unable to attack and are forced to only ask not to resist. But who cares about these pathetic screams? Our trio flies out from under the gun's sights at incredible speed. It's unlikely they'll be able to catch up with them, so Delta Squad should leave tracking the sample. Now we need to get out of here. The management is waiting for a report on the work done. But it's not that simple. This crazy doctor has blocked all possible escape routes. Fortunately, they don't face the same fate as Beta and can get out on their own. The boys still haven't been told what will happen to them. These idiots think about anything but work. What disgusting creatures they are. There is nothing human left in them, only animal instincts. This time, Samson intervened at the perfect time, because if it had happened a little more, these assholes would have attacked the defenseless girl. A very famous blogger stands in front of the soldiers. His death will certainly not go unnoticed. Just let them try to touch him, and they are dead. But for them, this argument was not particularly weighty, and they began to beat Samson without any shame. They don't even hide their intentions, calmly pointing weapons at peaceful people. But not all members of the squad share this attitude. The commander of these scoundrels is pursuing completely different goals. It's time to punish these fools and make them work. The squad doesn't need slackers. We need to fix this damn door and get out of this gloomy slaughterhouse. Well, our guys will have to continue hanging around with these scum of society. Poor Lee gets it the worst. The masked freaks treat him even worse than cattle. These creatures do not hesitate to mock him to the fullest extent of their flawed imagination. The place looked more like an abandoned butcher shop. The smell of blood completely permeated this disgusting little room. The huge packs contained an extremely unpleasant-looking mass, but one of the packages was different from the others. Remains of unknown origin almost fell out of it onto the floor. This creepy laboratory became some kind of joke of crazy people. While one is fixing the door, the others must keep a close eye on these creatures in packs and jars. But these bastards don't want to work. These two only have carnal pleasures with the captive on their minds. But it's not that simple. They are just performers. Without a commander, they don't have the right to even take a step. They could have eliminated their rivals and taken advantage of the girl. But the only thing that stood in their way was the boss. Although at the moment he is busy, so this completely unties the hands of these idiots. It would be a good idea to get rid of unwanted witnesses first, and then you can pay attention to the girl. Everything would have been fine, but Shorty Lee found out about these dirty plans, and he who was forewarned is well armed. Fortunately, this nimble fellow managed to warn his comrades in misfortune, and even drew up a plan to combat them. For the first time in his life, he decided to take a heroic step and detain the scoundrels with stupid questions and speeches. These idiots immediately swallowed the bait, without even suspecting that it was a setup. Lee may have been small in stature, but he knew exactly where to strike. These two stupid monkeys are barely holding back from shooting the poor guy. Each of this rotten duo sought to regain their undermined authority and punish the shorty. These sadists think nothing of killing a person, so they decided to trample this small, but already real hero. While these primates were mercilessly killing Lee, his friends were carrying out a real escape. Without Lee Doksu, they would all have definitely died. In this situation, he acted like the most courageous hero. Looks like it's high time to send some stronger guys to help our comrade. What luck, Lee was still able to survive. It's time to give these idiots the most unforgettable gift and send them to their graves. The lizards are already quite hungry. They need to be fed urgently. The bait did its job brilliantly, and finally those masked bastards will get what they deserve. While the lizards are having dinner, Lee has a good chance to join his comrades. But don't forget that monsters are very dangerous for them too. You need to get out of here as quickly as possible, but the door is still broken and there is no easy way out. These bastards will have plenty to do for a long time if they want to survive, of course. Did she really manage to fix it so quickly? She's not an ordinary girl, but some kind of gift from fate. Even the commander of these fools couldn't cope with this door. That's impressive. For his curiosity, he paid the highest price, his life. The boys should hurry up, otherwise they will be the perfect addition to the meal. But not all of the lizards were awarded instant death. One of the scoundrels desperately fought for his life. After everything that happened to them, they gave this asshole a chance at salvation, although he did not deserve it at all. But in the end, even such a spawn was able to survive. His psyche was noticeably damaged, but there were no serious injuries to his body. Lee had no intention of saving his life, and this position is entirely justified. But in the woman's heart, there still lived mercy and compassion, true human qualities. But not everyone here is so humane. Hatred gripped poor Lee, and he passionately desired the death of this entire gang of sadists. This guy doesn't even try to make contact. He just stares like a ram at the new gate. He only observed in order to determine Lee Doksu's main weakness. He had never held a weapon in his hands. Even when he was under fire, this bastard dared to mock life, teaches people like him nothing at all. Lee is already at his limit. Rage consumes him like fire and burns his soul to the ground. Finally, someone knocked out this insolent asshole. Lee couldn't help but smile. The offender had paid for all the beatings and suffering. From a blunt blow to the head, he softened like liquid. But Kim still needs to be stopped. His cruelty is already going beyond all possible limits. Even after such a strong blow, this spawn was able to survive. Is he immortal? Kim has become too aggressive. He is no longer the sunny boy he used to be. The boy himself doesn't see anything terrible in his actions. He just punished a bad person. It's just not clear how Lee knew who the dinosaur would attack, and how he was able to react so quickly. It's all because of that nasty finger. It somehow works as bait for these huge monsters. This crap was a way to assassinate Lee, which Kim pulled off beautifully. Is Jinsu really capable of such a terrible act, especially towards his comrade? Kim himself never confessed. He plays the fool talentedly. And he's doing quite well at it, to be honest. Quite well for a simple boy. A child inspires more trust than an evil shorty. Lee again fell in the eyes of his comrades. He was never able to prove his truth. It's time to return to the impudent traitor and find out the information they need. The second part of this strange team was in a very strange and unpleasant place, and it looks like our sample found something useful, but his face is frozen in horror. What a strange place. It's scary to even imagine where it really is. Everything around is slimy and soft, more like someone's huge stomach. Getting out of here will be extremely difficult and dangerous. Everything here looks disgusting. What a strange name this boy has for this place. It is huge and seems hopeless. And here it's better not to shout, "You can be very sorry." It won't be possible to climb up, but it's still possible to get out. A strange stream of thoughts began to overtake Kim Hyunmin, and it seemed to greatly confuse him. We need to hurry and get out of this slimy abomination as soon as possible. Now is not the time to stir up the past. We need to gather all our strength and try to cope with all of this. Only under such circumstances will it be possible to survive and return to your previous calm life. Finally, Hyun was able to return to reality and think clearly. The white-haired guy still seems suspicious. It's quite scary to be alone with him. How we miss Lee Doku here. He could certainly ease this tense atmosphere. But now there is no opportunity to choose. You have to use what you have. It's time to make friends with this fair-haired boy. He will definitely be useful. She would be a good replacement in case Kim Hyun-min dies. This girl clearly won't last long alone. The situation suddenly becomes even more nasty, and danger probably lies ahead. Something scary and vile began to slowly crawl out of the darkness. It clearly had no intention of making contact with the boys. Not a second has passed, and the monster is already starting to attack. But the blonde guy is not as simple as he seems. He is clearly stronger than an ordinary person, and incredibly resilient. But the monster has an ace up his sleeve. He's not alone here. 3 of us definitely won't be able to cope with such a crowd. The only way out is to run away as quickly as possible. Why does this blonde guy need this strange bag? The girl almost found herself in the jaws of one of these creatures. She needed to climb up quickly. Climbing these slippery walls is extremely difficult for our heroes, and it is also very dangerous. The poor thing can't get out anymore. The monsters have grabbed her tightly and are pulling her towards themselves, wanting to devour the unfortunate woman. The blonde will have to try hard to get these 2 out of this deadly mess. But not everyone has enough chances. Someone will have to die. Hyunmin can't cope anymore. Fear consumes him and sends him into the past. And the monsters are pulling harder and harder with each passing second. The girl was no longer a survivor. Her chances of survival had collapsed in an instant, along with this flimsy human structure. Meanwhile, the monsters couldn't wait for a sweet meal, getting closer and closer to the girl. They will not spare the unfortunate woman, and in just a moment will gladly deprive her of her precious life. One of these creatures has already found a new victim and began its hunt. Hyunmin found himself facing death again, but now he must fight her himself. The monster is much stronger and faster than the guy, and his chances of survival are not as high as he would like. The blonde, as always, is on time and saves Kim Hyunmin's life several times. There's no time for pathetic whining. We need to move faster than these creatures. Who is he really? An ally or still a monster? Where is he really dragging Hyunmin, and what are his goals? Those creatures have collars on their necks that are exactly the same as this guy. They were all people before, and that armed group consisted of ordinary people, and the group with collars were monsters. Where is he going to take Hyun? But Blondie ignores all the attacks from his ally and continues on his way. Kim Hyun-min seems to be starting to realize something, and the truth is causing a storm of negative emotions in him. Who is this guy anyway? Where did he come from, and what does he really want? Zero reaction. This psycho doesn't even try to explain himself to Hyun. Meanwhile, Lee continues to torment the masked bastard. One wrong move, and he will run away, or maybe even attack. This guy still didn't inspire any confidence. There was no reason to trust him and follow him. The brazen behavior of this freak throws Lee off balance almost instantly. The impudent person, meanwhile, only adds fuel to the fire with his excessive self-confidence. He clearly has no intention of helping our team. Moreover, he openly mocks them. But Kim has his own opinion on this matter, and it's unlikely that this scoundrel wants to know it. This donkey seems to only understand the language of force. Kim wants to receive only the most reliable answers to his questions. He severely punishes any lie. And apparently the freak in the mask began to understand the full deplorability of his situation. The only way out will most likely be a life preserver somewhere on the island. And now the soldier will have to go with the guys, if of course he values his life. The darkness makes the entire space around heavy and terrifying. But unfortunately, this passage is almost completely flooded, so it's not possible to simply pass through. And Lee doesn't particularly like this. This guy is not a big fan of the hard way. There is nothing to be done. This is the only known way out of this hell. One can only hope that everyone present knows how to swim, and those who don't will have to learn quickly. This little doctor tried his best in such conditions. It is almost impossible to find him. But who is this mysterious doctor, and what was he working on? It was this man who started this whole hellish mess with dinosaurs. He caused a lot of trouble, but his identity and his name remain a mystery. Any experiment fails sooner or later, and this time something went wrong. The whole area was filled with water and strange papers of different colors and sizes. This guy has a lot more information about what's going on than it seemed at first glance. The young man's company was the main connoisseur of experiments on people. Now there are more questions for these guys. How ordinary people were able to get into the secret territory. It is unlikely that ordinary people will be able to get here without special goals. Lee was in no hurry to answer the question. Instead, he decided to ask his own and find out everything about this place. The scoundrel's face suddenly took on a frightened look. He clearly noticed something. It was hard to make out anything in the darkness, but such a reaction could not bode well. there was something very strange floating in the water. It was a human body. It's hard to even imagine how long it had been floating here. It looks like it's a doctor. Apparently he didn't manage to leave the building in time. And he wasn't the only one here. Everything around was strewn with corpses in white coats. And this corpse is none other than the researcher of this failed experiment. The exit was almost completely flooded, which is probably why they are all dead now. But it's still worth checking it out. There's always even the smallest chance of salvation. The water is murky and cold, and it's hard to see underneath, but even so, it's worth trying. Under the water, only fragments of the spruce are visible. Nothing else can be seen there. Lee still doesn't trust this guy at all. He sees only a catch in everything, and this time was no exception. The sharp sound still made everyone turn their attention away from the diver. First, a distorted human face appeared from the water, and behind it, something larger was trying to come out. A monster of gigantic proportions rose above the water in an instant and terrified everyone. Now is precisely the time when it is simply necessary to use the weapons that have been taken away. But Lee had never actually held a weapon in his hands, and certainly didn't know how to shoot. Kim still believes in his comrade's strength, and forces him to pull himself together and start attacking. And for a first-timer, Lee does a pretty good job. You can't stand still. There are far more of these creatures than it seems at first glance. We need to get underwater and get out of this death cell before it's too late. It is extremely difficult to move quickly underwater, and visibility there is almost zero. Kim Jin-soo can't cope at all. He doesn't have much air left. Right behind the boy, two nasty heads grew. They were huge and extremely aggressive. If he doesn't manage to grab his comrade's hand, he will die. But Lee doesn't seem to be planning to save him at all. He snatches the last hope right from the hands of the doomed boy. Kim Jin-soo slowly disappears into the darkness, which will become his eternal grave. Well, the remaining three were still able to break away from the chase and get to the surface. Why did Lee decide to take revenge on Kim at such an untimely moment? In fact, he died because of it. The shorty himself is not particularly upset. He saved her, which means he is a hero. If it weren't for him, Jin-soo could have been saved. He would be alive now. This is no longer the same stupid Lee Doksu. Now this is the one who will sacrifice everything for his own salvation. And now he knows how to shoot, so it's better not to get in his way. That brat Kim tried to get rid of the shorty himself, but he didn't succeed. But Lee did. It's time to get out of here. The friendly boy himself became no better than the most terrible maniacs. But it's too late to change anything. Most of the way has already been traveled. He will not stop until he reaches his ultimate goal. Meanwhile, the moves become more and more confusing and dangerous. What a creepy place. What happened here before? This is nothing less than the main testing laboratory for the creation of these huge creatures. There are crossed-out portraits of different people hanging on the walls. Lee Tae is amazed by their number and does not understand why they are treated like this. Lee Doku notices a large hole in the floor and goes over to take a closer look. However, the man stops him and says that it's better not to go there. He explains that it is a kind of dump for all kinds of waste. Lee Tae's attention is drawn to a portrait of a guy they had met before. She remembers him and says that Hyunmin and Seo-hyun followed him, but Lee Doku says it's not him. And then they show Hyunmin walking after this same guy, whose hands are stained with blood. They are heading towards some passage from which light is coming out. Hyunjin rejoices and goes inside, but instead of the long-awaited exit, he sees only a distant hole in the ceiling. The white-haired man hands the bag to the puzzled guy. He doesn't understand where he's taken him and starts to get angry, but the guy points up and says that the exit is there. Hyunjin pounces on the white-haired man in a rage and asks how he should get there. The guy moves away and easily starts jumping up the walls to climb up. And the hero understands that only he can get there. Seeing a large number of corpses on the floor, he falls to his knees in despair, not understanding what to do next. The white-haired man asks him to open his backpack, which he clearly does not understand. He says that he has fulfilled his part of the agreement, and now it is up to him. With anger and not understanding the meaning of what he is doing, Hyunjin opens his backpack. A first aid kit and a bottle of water fall out from there. But the guy's attention is drawn to some package with a hand that was lying in the briefcase. It was Kim Jin-soo's hand, but it was missing 2 fingers. At this time, the white-haired man jumps down from the top and takes her in his hand. He opens his mouth and begins to devour her. And Hyunjin sits there in despair, not understanding what is happening. At this moment, a smoke grenade flies in, putting the heroes to sleep, and strange people in cloaks enter the room. Lee Doku begins recording and assures that everything that happens next is not a setup. He shows large flasks with orange liquid and says that he is now in some kind of laboratory. He is moved to tears when he says that only he and Lee Tae are left. But with fury in his eyes, he screams that he will get out of here and figure out what is happening here. And then Lee Tae comes up to him from behind and asks what he is doing here. He is indignant, saying that she got into the frame, and that now they will have to shoot everything again. The girl notices the phone in his hand, And the guy doesn't understand why she's surprised. She reproaches him for continuing to film even after the death of their friends. But Lee Daku says there is nothing wrong with that. He is choosing the best place to shoot from when he suddenly notices something behind him. He zooms in on the picture and doesn't understand what it is. The guy turns around and points his machine gun at one of the flasks, while the girl next to him doesn't understand what's happening. And the man approaches several broken flasks. He sees dinosaurs devouring the corpses of other people. Suddenly he hears the scream of a frightened Lee Daku who is sitting on the floor. The guy saw a big dinosaur and started getting ready to shoot, but he didn't hit even once and only frightened the animal. Taking a moment to recover from what just happened, he notices that these creatures are damn fast. And then they hear the scream of a man running from the dinosaurs and telling them to do the same. Together they run up to the stairs. From there, Lee Daku continues to shoot at the dinosaurs, but still without hitting. He only scares them away with the sound of gunshots. They reach a locked door, but Lee Tae says he knows how to open it using wires. She manages to open the door, but then one of the dinosaurs gnaws through the floor and sticks its head out from underneath. He grabs the man by the legs as he tries unsuccessfully to get out. Lee Tae rushes to his aid and tries to get him out of the dinosaur's mouth. And Lee Doka, with fear on his face, tells her to leave him. But she shouts at him that only this man can get them out of here. And then the bespectacled man decides to come up and help them. He shoots right into the animal's face, which helps the man free himself. And now they are standing on the other side of the door, safe. The girl thanks Lee Doka for saving them, because she thought that he would abandon them. However, with a creepy grimace, the guy says that this was not done for nothing. He asks her to say the same thing on camera, but is immediately refused. Lee Daki gets angry and asks the girl to help him since everything is over. He asks the man for a way out while he is still recovering from what happened. He nods at the door behind them and says that the exit is right there. An encouraged Lee Daki approaches the door and is glad that they will finally be able to leave this place. However, when he opens it, he sees two men in armor and gas masks. And at that very moment he gets shot in the chest. Lee Tae, perplexed, asks the man what is going on, but he only apologizes and says that this is how the circumstances turned out. And having received a bullet in the forehead, the girl goes straight after her friend. At this moment, the dinosaurs are looking for a way into the room and find a ventilation grate. They tear it out, and one by one climb into the resulting passage. And the man asks his colleagues the reason for their delay. But without waiting for an answer, he gets hit on the head with a rifle butt. And the military says he is being fired for failing the mission and leaking confidential information. While one explains that there is nothing personal here, the other handcuffs the man. But before shooting him, one of the soldiers freezes for a moment. He receives a command that code 66 has been activated. And now Lee Tae wakes up, not understanding what is happening. She doesn't understand how she survived because she was shot at. The man hurriedly explains to her that they shot with a tranquilizer and asks her to release him quickly. But he only gets a slap in the face. The girl angrily calls him a traitor and no longer wants to trust him. The man nervously tries to justify himself, but he doesn't succeed very well. The girl starts pulling his hair and she screams and gets more and more indignant. At this moment, Lee Doke also wakes up, which makes the man happy and asks him to help him. But realizing what had happened, the guy simply joined in the beatings. From under the hail of blows, the man shouts that they have activated code 66. After briefly stopping the scolding, Lee Tae asks what this means. They tell her that such a code is used when the island is completely out of control. But Lee Doka says with disdain that he doesn't believe him. The man makes a rather convincing argument, forcing others to believe his words. He says he will take the heroes to the situation room, but they need to hurry. Lee Daki suggests just leaving him, but the girl agrees to untie the man's legs, on the condition that he doesn't do anything strange. As they run, the man hopes that they haven't left yet, but as soon as they enter that very treasured room, they find no one there. The man is amazed that there is no one here. He hypothesizes that everyone has already evacuated, and suddenly Lee Tae notices cameras showing all the people heading to the ship. The man says in despair that they are too late. In anger, Lee Dake lunges at him and demands answers. The man tries to justify himself by saying that they are just following orders. The girl, with hope in her voice, suggests going to the meeting place and trying to get out, but the man quickly disappoints her. After all, the last ship has just sailed. And then on camera, Lee Tae sees Hyunmin sitting in some room. She immediately asks the man where this place is. The man nods towards the passage and says that he is there. The girl rushes there headlong and sees the guy. She has a lot of questions and she bombards Hyunmin with them. But the guy has trouble answering and simply says that something happened. And at that moment, Lee Daku enters the room. Seeing the phone in his hand, Hyunmin's eyes turn bloodshot and angry. And now he is already pouncing on the guy, preparing for a strong blow. With rage on his face, he beats up Doku and blames him for the fact that they still haven't gotten out. But he just starts laughing hysterically. With a haughty smile, he He reminds Hyunmin that it was he who warned everyone and told them not to go into the forest. But no one listened to him, and this is what it led to. Now they are all dead, and they haven't even found a way out. He provokes Hyunmin by calling him a loser, and tells him to admit the obvious. And then the guy loses his temper and yells at Lee Daku to shut up. Tae tries to stop Hyunmin and stretches out his hand towards him, but he only grabs her and swings to strike. However, the girl's face brings him to his senses, and he only desperately says that they are finished. And then a man comes into the room and says that this is not so. He remembers the telephone and offers to contact the outside world, but the girl objects that there is no connection. And the man says that she really isn't here, but she is in the administrative building. Tae doesn't understand what he's talking about and what it all means. The man says he will show it on the spot, but to do this they need to untie him. However, immediately after these words, he gets punched in the face by an angry Hyunmin, who tells him to explain everything normally. He asks to let him go, but the guy squeezes the wound on his hand, causing him incredible pain. Hyunmin continues to press and waits for an answer. Screaming in pain, the man agrees to explain everything, if only he would let him go. After this, he explains that the island is divided into 3 parts, and tells in more detail about each of them. Since the island is under control, only the leadership can communicate with the outside world, and therefore, there is communication only in the administrative building, which they can use to escape. The girl expresses doubts about him, because he already betrayed them once, but he replies that there is no point in lying, because he was abandoned here like the others. Tae agrees, but says that he will be under their supervision. After that, she asks Hyunmin where the blonde guy with whom they left is. He points to a thick iron door, behind which his silhouette can be seen. The girl is worried about him and wants to take him with her, but the guy says that this blonde guy is not human. Hyunjin begins to blame himself for trusting him, and the girl is in a stupor, having learned that the white-haired man ate Jinsu's amputated arm. The guy says he doesn't know why he did it, but the hand somehow appeared in the backpack. Tahi doesn't understand how she ended up there, because the guy threw her out. And then the man reminds everyone that they need to go to the video surveillance room. The girl asks about the blonde, still wanting to take him with her, but they don't say anything to her, and the white-haired man just looks at her through the bars, and then he tells her not to go. When she turns away, he rushes to the bars and shouts to stop. The blonde says that if they go, they will all die. At this time, Doku calls the man over and says that he has a proposal for him. He suggests leaving the others and going out together. Once they get out, they will receive a tidy sum for the video on his phone, and they will also become heroes. Doku says that this is indeed a good offer, especially considering the current situation. The man asks about guarantees, not fully trusting the guy, and at that moment he unties his hands, saying that they need to trust each other. And Hyunmin comes up from behind and demands an explanation. But Doku says with a serious face that they didn't discuss anything like that. The guy immediately grabs him by the neck and asks why he untied the man's hands then. Hyunmin doesn't trust him and thinks he'll screw them over again. But then a dinosaur falls on him from the ventilation, and salvation comes from an unexpected place, in the form of Tae with a fire extinguisher. She scares the dinosaur away and tells Hyunmin to get up quickly. Another monster appears in front of her, but the fire extinguisher jams and the foam does not come out. While she's trying to figure out what's going on, the dinosaur is already getting ready to take a bite out of her, but she is saved by a blonde man who somehow got out of the room. He scares off one of the dinosaurs, but another one is already behind him, about to bite him. The blonde guy doesn't have time to react, and now he's in the creature's mouth. From above, he sees a pipe and rips it out. Steam starts pouring out of there, causing the dinosaur to open its mouth, and the guy immediately tells everyone to run. Having somehow escaped the pursuit, they catch their breath at the stairs. Tae is worried about the white-haired man's wound, and asks if there is anything she can do to help. And Hyunmin doesn't understand why she freed him and refuses to take him with her. The girl objects that it was he who first noticed the dinosaurs, and thanks to him she is alive. But with obvious irritation on his face, the guy remembers the incident with Jinsu's hand, and says that the blonde is not human. He tells the girl what he saw at the dump and asks if she wants to take him with her. He asks the man about the exit and tells him to lead them. But he says that because of the rush, he didn't have time to check the cameras to see which route was safest. He says he knows the way, but it might be dangerous. And the blonde guy at this time says that this path is safe, and he doesn't feel anyone there. Doku doesn't want to trust him, but Tae realizes that he senses dinosaurs. The man offers to take him with them, because with him they will find a safe exit within an hour. The blonde boy's wound looks extremely serious, and with every second he is getting closer to death. And now they are already running towards the exit. The man is grateful to the blonde, because thanks to him they got there much faster than he thought. But his strength is already running out, and he falls to the ground. He has lost too much blood, but he cannot die yet. The man asks the others to wait while he runs for the first aid kit. The girl is against him going alone because she still doesn't trust him. And then Doku offers to go with him, saying that he will not let him escape. Tae is surprised by this, because usually the guy doesn't like to go where there is danger. This irritates the guy, but he decides to just move on. He realizes that this is a great chance to betray everyone, and a sinister smile appears on his face. But suddenly Hyunmin says that he will go with them. Doku immediately becomes nervous and says that he can't do it. After all, the rest will be in danger if no one remains to protect them. But then the subject's voice is heard, saying that everything is fine. He says it's safe here and the dinosaurs won't get to them. Hyunmin agrees and says it's time to go. Doku is against it, but he has nothing to say, so he just irritably obeys. They reach a warehouse where there should be a first aid kit. The man says they should hurry and take her while everything is quiet. Doku doesn't understand why it's so dark in here, and the mercenary sarcastically replies that it's a warehouse. When he goes inside, the guy steps on something sticky and can't figure out what it is. And then he sees a dinosaur at the end of the room devouring a human corpse. Suddenly he turns around with someone's entrails in his mouth. But fortunately, our heroes manage to hide, and the monster sees nothing. However, another problem arises here. The animal is standing right next to the first aid kit. The man says that now he will have to be distracted somehow. Doku suggests his own solution, but Hyunmin doesn't trust him. The bespectacled man doesn't understand what's going on, and the guy says that this is not the first time he has tried to kill him, and therefore he will not trust him. But Doku simply says that in that case he will go alone, or Hyunmin will go alone since he doesn't trust him. The guy says that he decided this way because two people are much safer than one, but if Hyunmin doesn't like it, then let him decide. The same one reduces the pressure and asks what the essence of the bespectacled man's plan is. Doku points to a fire axe on the wall. Hyunmin doesn't like this idea, because it's just suicide, and then the man offers his own option, and asks Doku for his phone number. He explains that when a dinosaur sees light in the dark, it becomes very aggressive. This method already proved its usefulness when one of the monsters escaped. The phone has a flashlight and it's dark, so the plan might work. The man will distract him, and the guys will cut off his head. He extends his hand, asking Doku for the phone, but Doku is not entirely sure whether he wants to part with his prized possession. And in the end he says that he will do it himself, because simply turning on a flashlight is not difficult. He calls Hyunmin over and asks him to get the axe. The guy doesn't understand what happened to the bespectacled man, and thinks that he has really changed. But he just bites his elbows because the man intervened and prevented him from killing the guy. If it weren't for him, his plan would have worked, and Hyunmin would be lying dead. The man asks the guy if he has changed his mind and offers to take on this burden. But Doku says that everything is fine, and by this time Hyunmin is already standing behind with an axe. The bespectacled man walks right up to the dinosaur and attracts its attention, and it is already running towards him with its mouth open. Doku turns on the flashlight and the monster stops for a second, and a moment later Hyunmin cuts off his head. Doku screams that he was on the verge of death. The man doesn't understand what he's talking about, because everything went as planned. And then the bespectacled man realizes that he really was just lucky. Taking the first aid kit in his hands, the mercenary says that they need to hurry, because there might be more dinosaurs here. But Doku is fiddling around with something behind them. He wants to film the animal's corpse. The guy asks to wait a little because he is almost finished, but suddenly Hyunmin knocks the phone out of his hands. He picks it up and asks why Doku needs it. And after that he simply takes it for himself and tells you to take it back if you don't like something. But he warns that if he tries to do this, death awaits him. The bespectacled man teases the guy and deliberately asks him to kill him. After all, his phone is completely password protected, and without Doku they will never be able to unlock it. He asks to give it back in a good way, and with a serious face he says not to touch him, otherwise the guy will regret it very much. Hyunmin angrily says that he will kill him, but still returns the phone. He tells the bespectacled man to behave normally because he will be watching him. Eventually, they all return to Tae and the subject with the first aid kit. Hyunmin decides to tend to the latter's wounds, but when he wipes away the blood, he sees that the blonde has already recovered, and is very surprised by this. At this moment, a man comes up from behind and says that he has something to talk about regarding Doku. He tells the guy about the bespectacled guy's offer, but he thinks it would be better to get rid of it. Before this conversation, Doku had already approached the man, blaming him for preventing him from getting rid of Hyunmin. He tells him not to screw up if he wants to leave with him. But the mercenary says that he does not want to do what the guy wants. He says that he can get out without the man's help and simply leaves. Finally, he says that he could have made the man rich, but he made the decision himself. Hearing this story, Hyunmin becomes furious, but the mercenary calms him down and says that it is not time yet. After all, he is the only one with access to the phone, which means they need him at least until they leave. The man says that for now it would be best to just follow him, but after that, they will kill him without regret. Hyunmin remembers some girl and agrees to this plan. After that, He goes up to the blonde boy, bandages him, and tells him to get up, because there is work for him. And the last word comes from Doku, holding the phone in his hands. They reach the last staircase, and the bespectacled man joyfully rushed ahead of everyone, celebrating their victory. Opening the door, they see dense jungle in front of them. Doku remembers this place. They were here last time. The surprised mercenary asks Tahe if this is true, and she replies that she was interested in the plants from here. The man explains that they were specially bred for dinosaurs. However, he notes that it is better not to touch them, because they are extremely dangerous. Everyone is going to move on, but the subject doesn't want to go anywhere. He says he has never been outside of this place before, but Tae tells him that everything is fine, and now he can go outside. The blonde trusts her and takes a step outside. Meanwhile, Doku is once again recording a video for his fans. He wants to show the place, but Hyunmin stands right in front of him and tells him to turn off the camera. The bespectacled man says irritably that he needs to record it for money. He knows that the battery is low, but the desire to see the audience takes over. Hyomin retreats and Doku starts all over again. Both guys look at him with disdain as he shows off in public, but they can't do anything about it. And then they hear a voice from the forest. This is Jinsu, who miraculously survived. And then the events move to the time of Jinsu's childhood. He was always generous and kind. He always helped everyone with a smile and tried to please, but everyone communicated with him only for the sake of profit, and simply used him. He was never really needed by anyone. How much more must a guy suffer for his efforts to be noticed and appreciated? How many times must one go through humiliation, each time hearing insults and receiving blows? Someone's hand came to his aid and pulled him out of the damn water. Who is this? What does he need? It wasn't for nothing that he was taken away from the clutches of death. Kim Jin-soo definitely looks crazy. There's no point in denying the obvious. Why is everyone around him upset? Are they really worried that they didn't help him? They should be happy because he turned out to be alive. The heroes were confused. Those who were with him claimed that Jin-soo was dead. Tae rushed towards him, exclaiming that she had to save him. She apologizes to him, but Jin-soo saw Doku pull the girl along with him. The culprit justifies himself there was no other choice. Otherwise, everyone would have died. To his surprise, the guy agreed with this. Samson could not do anything. Jin-soo looked sideways at Hyunmin. Sacrificing others to save himself was normal. This is what you need to do to stay alive. This is the only sensible option, and now it's time to leave here. This is a clever trick. Everything can't be so smooth after what happened. Doku's life is in even greater danger. We should talk about future plans, but is it worth trusting Jeans? That same entrance with the ill-fated vines. The mercenary said that this was the entrance to the building, and that we needed to go the other way. Jinsu noticed pieces of vines with thorns covered in his blood. The third exit, according to the soldier, they got where they needed to go. Specimen A stopped abruptly. There is danger ahead. He senses a dinosaur. The mercenary assumed that the reptile was feeding on grass, since there was a farm nearby. However, there is no absolute certainty about this predators might also live here. The exit is in front of them, so they'll have to check. Time is running out. Dinosaur farm with fenced enclosures. The research block ends here, and then you need to get to the administrative building. Sample A discovered something, and abruptly pushed the others into the room. 3 reptiles approached the passage. Their sense of smell and reaction came in handy. It looks like they were following the heroes and caught up with them. They went inside. The local herbivores were unlucky. Their fate is now sealed. The soldier likes that a distraction has been found. To get to the administration, you need to climb the stairs, but the dinosaurs will notice the fugitives. Someone's roar was heard. Who was it? There are very large herbivorous reptiles nearby. They are kept in the next room. Samson has an idea why not release the larger specimens. Hyunmin would be best suited for this task. A strong physique and endurance should help the hero. The athlete has a better chance of escaping from the monsters. Tahi disagrees. She can handle a similar mission too. No, it's dangerous. And if everyone goes, then death will become even closer. Usually it was Hyunmin who took on risky things. He had already managed to get out of difficult situations many times. He gathered his strength and rushed to the nearest shelter. The hero exhaled. He wasn't caught, but the others looked very scared. One of the dinosaurs caught the maneuver and headed towards the man. The reptile definitely saw Hyunmin, and now she saw it with her own eyes. Here it is, the treasured switch. Fortunately, it works. Even the monster stopped. What a meeting. The huge herbivorous dinosaur is finally free. The slaughter of the innocents has begun, but the giant has many enemies. The people rush towards the stairs, leaving Hyunmin behind. There is no time to waste. The hero has also run away. Despite the enormous enemy, one of the monsters turned its attention to the man. The dinosaur turned out to be too fast and managed to bite the man on the leg. Hyunmin managed to kick the predator with his other leg. A mercenary came to the rescue, grabbing the guy by the arm. But the grip is somehow weak. For some reason, the soldier doesn't pull the hero. Hyunmin had already lost hope of being saved when Jinsu grabbed him. Now the mercenary has nowhere to go, he helps to get up. The predators suffered heavy losses, but killed the herbivorous enemy. It may not be the right time, but Hyunmin wants to know if they were trying to screw him over. The mercenary denies why they would leave the man behind. The guy felt and saw how the man behaved and did not want to help. Enough of this nonsense. The mercenary has no intention of giving himself away. You shouldn't look for a catch in everything. And whispering to each other in front of others is suspicious, especially if the bespectacled person sees this. Now you need to calm down. The mercenary tries to twist the guy around his finger. It was hard to stay on your feet. The dinosaur managed to injure its leg. Jinsu caught Hyunmin. The leg doesn't look its best and should be examined. Jinsu is dealing with his injuries, and there is an awkward silence. Hyunmin thanks him for his help in difficult times, and Jinsu replies that everyone needs to get out. You can't be a selfish coward, ready to abandon everyone for your own salvation. Jinsu remembers how they shouted at him to abandon him, otherwise no one would survive. He says that Hyunmin can't die, but he's clearly lying. Yes, indeed, he will not let this happen just like that. The heroes continue their journey into the unknown. The mercenary led the group to the administration building. There shouldn't be any dinosaurs here. Tahi suspects that the creatures could have easily come here. The zone is cut off from the outside world. It is impossible to enter without a special card. The man was calm and confidently entered the building. The phone still doesn't work. I need to get to the main office. Luckily, there is an elevator. Doku is already happy, as if he had left the island. While Hyunmin and the soldier were looking at each other tensely, Samson saw someone. The man cannot understand where the person came from. What if it's a worker who also can't get out of this zone? Specimen A stepped sharply towards Tahe and grabbed her hand. The soldier approached the stranger and asked what was going on. The figure did not respond in any way, and when it turned its head, the hero stood like a statue. If it weren't for the speed of Sample A, the mutant would have definitely killed the soldier. The rest were shocked at what the hell was going on, and the administration was closed. Only now did the mercenary understand why the employees evacuated the island so quickly. He doesn't know who it is either. The mutant has a badge, which means he was human most likely. The emergency on the island was caused by the doctor. Hyunmin said he had seen something similar before. In Zone -D, there were similar distorted faces, the same as this mutant's. The scientist probably became a monster, just like those encountered at the dump. The mercenary disagrees, considering the guess to be nonsense, since unsuccessful experiments were sent to the septic tank. He doesn't believe that the workers resorted to such cruel experiments, and the clothes look normal. The man thinks that the researchers simply did not have time to evacuate. A terrifying roar echoed through the building. Could it be that mutants had emerged from somewhere? Perhaps the research victims were locked here to prevent them from escaping. Could the doctor's experiments affect ordinary people? Samson recalled zombie movies where infection occurs through bites or cuts. It is possible that wounds from dinosaurs also lead to irreversible changes. There are no bite marks on the worker. Something else happened to him. There are no injuries or wounds on his body, and his clothes appear intact. However, it is best to avoid any contact with the creatures. Time is running out. We need to hurry. Fortunately, the elevator is nearby. The creature's screams can be heard throughout the building, so you'll have to move as quietly as possible. The elevator arrived, the doors opened, and the heroes saw many eyes turn towards them. A whole crowd of former employees rushed after the fugitives. Due to his injured leg, Hyunmin fell behind the others and asked them to wait for him. The looks of the mercenary and Doku indicated that there was no hope for help, and Tae rushed towards the guy. The girl picked up the wounded man and hurried with all her might towards the passage. However, this is not enough. Sample A kicked away several mutants in a jump, and Jinsu did not stay on the sidelines either. The attack was repelled, and the soldier abruptly closed the door. He didn't expect such recklessness and agility from the girl. Everything happened very quickly. If there is a possibility, why not save a person? The monsters are beating against the door, but it is not protected. It will not last long. They are stuck, and the main office is in the next room. Sample A drew attention to the ventilation. This is the exit from the room. It is quite possible that she is connected to the main office, urgently inside. A crowd of maddened monsters broke through the door. Hyunmin's leg is not in the best condition, and there is a plant in the bandage that he doesn't know about. Jinsu repeats his question if the guy is okay. The leg is definitely fine. Will the hero be able to walk? There is no need to worry. He doesn't feel anything bad. The group reached the main administration office. There is still no connection. First we need to turn on the equipment, and now what about the signal? The network was caught. A lot of missed ones. Doku knew that they would worry about him. First you need to call the rescuers, and then everything else. Number 119 has responded. Emergency services are listening. Samson frantically reports that they need help. The mercenary warns that as soon as the blogger finishes the conversation, We will immediately begin the plan to eliminate him. And then Doku asks to call the police, since he is now in danger. Two men who found themselves in trouble with him threaten him. If something happens to Samson, let the services keep this in mind. It was expected what the two of them were going to do to him after the call, wasn't it? A safety net is needed. But if both of them dare to resort to violence, Doku will tell everything to the police. It's better to choose your actions carefully. Samson keeps a particularly close eye on Hyunmin. Tahi begs for a phone number. He needs to find out how his brothers are doing. And then Hyunmin remembered. How is Mom? He has been in the dark for so long. Samson refuses, the battery charge is low, and he plans to record a video. Now every minute costs money, so he doesn't care about the problems of others. He won't drain his battery for other people's families. Jinsu is very dangerous. It's unclear what to expect from him. And now he's smashing a flower pot at the blogger's head with all his might. He knows the police will come here. The guy is really crazy. His actions will not go unpunished. Hasn't Jinsu already paid for it because of others? Let Samson not think that he himself will remain clean. Tahi jumped up to the guy and grabbed his hand. She had to stop the madman. Why is she defending this rat again? Why is she acting like a saint? Tae is not like Doku. She wants to protect Jinsu. There is no time to sort things out. The roar of mutants can be heard here too. The blogger will be tied up tighter if it weren't for the girl. He would have been killed long ago. He is trying to reach out to those he took with him to the island. Those in their right minds. He gave them the opportunity. Why the guys let them tie him to the pole? Hyunmin declares that since Samson started this mess, he should clean it up himself. And thanks for the smartphone. Doku is furious. There are all the records, the work, several years of effort, and a couple of days of horror. The others left, leaving the man overcome with despair. But Samson is not going to just die. Otherwise, why did he overcome so many obstacles and difficulties? Some sounds. He looked closer. The faces of mutants were behind the ventilation grill. The monsters approached the man. The creatures crept up quietly and unexpectedly, and then burst through the door. Where did they come from? They shouldn't be there. The mercenary frantically presses the elevator button, begging it to go faster. The heroes jumped into the cabin. It was time to close the door. But the monsters were not close yet. No, mutants are very fast and strong. If it weren't for Sample A, who knows if anyone would have been able to reach the building. The blonde creature threw them out, and the elevator was able to close. How did the monsters know where the group was going? The sample indicated the reason. Hyunmin is the culprit. How should this be understood? The blonde guy said that it was the smell, and that the athlete was infected too. Yes, that's right. The same thing that was observed with Jinsu. What will happen now? The smell attracted dinosaurs, and now mutants are following it too. The injured leg makes the journey even more dangerous. Hyunmin moves worse, and he also becomes a bait for all sorts of monsters. Jinsu waited for the moment when it was possible to suggest amputating the leg. The hero is at a dead end. What decision to make? It was the same with Jinsu, who could not accept the suffering that fell upon him. You shouldn't tell him that the hero doesn't want to lose his leg when he cut off his hand. He was very cold-blooded. Meanwhile, the elevator arrived at the desired floor. First, it's more important to figure out how to escape from this cage with evil creatures. The creatures are already close, right above the heroes. They surround the group, jumping down. Hyunmin falls behind again, unable to keep up with the others. Monsters are everywhere, no matter where the exit is if the paths are cut off. There is someone standing apart from the crowd. He looks like the monsters, but seems to be different in some way. Suddenly he turned into a cross between a mutant and a dinosaur. Sample A only had time to say that there was someone else here before the meat grinder began. Dinosaurs, as if that weren't enough, the door was locked. What the hell is going on here? Another monster has appeared. While they are distracted, you should run. There is an exit nearby. The mercenary, leaving the administration, noticed the clearance status. This means that someone opened the entrance, but it is not the time to speculate about the culprit. Kind-hearted Tae helps the exhausted Hyunmin. Now is not the time to rest. Here comes Jinsu on the scene again. Stop hesitating. Just cut off the leg and be done with it. No matter what the heroes do, the monster follows them. Jinsu continues his rant about the dangers of infection and how it will kill everyone. The knife is in place, but first the guy is going to break the bone. Stop. The situation is completely different from when Jinsu's arm was amputated. There are no tools. The knife cannot be sterilized. Then there is no point in dragging Hyunmin along. The guy had better stay here since it's dangerous to do anything with his leg. The mercenary asks to give up the phone, and then they will say goodbye. Jinsu objects. He can't be abandoned. Otherwise, what's the point of all this? The hero must lose his leg and live the rest of his days as a cripple. This is too much. What amputation? Help will arrive soon. Why the hell go through with this? Does the girl want everyone to meet their demise because of one person? While they argue, the creatures follow the scent of the fugitive staying near the infected is mortally dangerous. Hyunmin was lost in memories of how he had pressured the others into making the amputation decision. How Sohyun threw back when she was grabbed by the monsters at the dump. He did it for everyone, not just himself. The soldier turned around. He was warning the others. Here comes the monster. He asked not to waste time. Every minute counted. In the end, the man decided to leave them since they couldn't make a choice. The dinosaur turned in the direction the mercenary had run away. From behind the scenes appears the one whose efforts have brought chaos to the island. Isn't the professor dangerous? The doctor assures them that he is on their side, and there is no need to be afraid in vain. Maybe Jinsu will say something. It turns out this guy pulled the guy out of the water. The professor admits that all the fuss was his fault, but he will explain everything later. First, let's get rid of the smell. The condition of the infected is depressing. While the doctor was performing the manipulations, Tahi noticed that something was wrong with his eyes. Based on the condition of the skin, the extent of the infection and the odor, the lesion can be removed. The operation requires a laboratory, but they barely manage to get out of there. The scientist understands them. He himself is in the same position. He is also trying to escape from the island. They were kept here and forced to conduct experiments. Tahi felt cold with horror, so that's why there was chaos here. This was the only and last chance to free oneself from the shackles of the company that organized the research. The smell attracts not only dinosaurs, but also much more frightening creatures. How can I get out of this, then? The professor is looking for something. If you use plants correctly, the pain will subside. The discomfort has decreased, and the sheet also reduces the spread of odor. Sample A was tested. There is an effect. But the disease will not go away. It will only buy time to leave the island. The scientist promises to cure Hyunmin if he is taken with them. Can he be trusted? The pain really did pass, but if they were late to the shore, they would remain here to perish. Jinsu looks at the plant bandage with anger. His plan was completely different. After some time, the mutants came to this place. The scent trail led them here. Since they took the doctor with them, he should tell where he had been hiding all this time and why he suddenly decided to come to the rescue. No, it wasn't a sudden idea. First he created chaos on the island. Afterwards, he was about to escape, but he learned about the arrival of a group of people here. Leaving early would have meant leaving them alone with the threats. He had no choice but to return, although he could have sailed away with the others. However, the professor's eyes do not see how he was able to find out about all the circumstances of how he ended up on the island. Previously, the researcher was with his colleagues, but now he was left alone. He puts all the blame on the sponsors. The scientist is obliged to return to society and tell about the experiments. This is a duty to those who are no longer alive. Although it doesn't seem like the doctor is lying, he should still be kept under surveillance. Here you can relax and even drink some water. Tahi will take advantage of the moment to step away for a moment. Oops, a dinosaur jumped out of the bushes. Why did the reptile run away? What's wrong with her? Why are they just running away? Wait, why did the water turn bloody? Tahi decided to take a look, and there were several corpses of herbivorous dinosaurs. Someone is poking around in the belly of one of them, and it's the mutants eating the insides. There is a huge hybrid here. Did they really notice or hear? We need to keep quiet. Just as Tahi relaxed, as the creatures turned their backs, a giant loomed over her. Fortunately, the roar distracted the monster, and it rushed towards the noise. Someone touched her hand. It was a soldier. He ran away alone. Without further ado, he pulled the girl along with him. Didn't the man run away from them, leaving the group? To which the soldier replied, how could he leave the others? Where are the guys now? They are at the river. Now Tahi will call them. Okay, who has a phone now? They called emergency services. Why would the man need a smartphone now? The soldier is worried that his mobile phone might have been lost while he was away. Hyunmin has the phone, but the mercenary is shocked that the guy is still not dead. This is a problem. The hero's leg makes things difficult. But what a surprise it was to hear that he got better. They met a doctor who numbed the infected area. With every word the girl said, the mercenary grew more and more gloomy. Damn, the professor was able to find the group. Their conversation was interrupted by someone's shout. They need to hurry. A terrifying scene appeared before their eyes. Mutants surrounded the fugitives. Oh no, they were caught just when they went to look for Tae. If you don't help them, they'll be finished off. Wait, isn't your own life more important? Let them sort it out themselves. The heroine doesn't want to leave anyone. There must be a way to get them out. There was a scream nearby. It seemed the professor was not releasing the large dinosaurs. Meanwhile, the rest are about to be eaten by laboratory creations. Specimen A has no intention of surrendering to the mutants. He only turned around for a moment to tell the others to leave when the giant grabbed him by the head. The blonde man looked into the eyes of death for a couple of seconds, but then the huge reptile threw the monster away. This is Tahe's doing. The mercenary was not sure that the girl would dare to open the gate. If one of these leaders sees his relatives dead, the killers will not be envious. Yes, the alpha individual is furious. She saw the corpses of her own kind. Let's take advantage of the moment. The way is clear on the other side. Let's hurry. The soldier seemed genuinely happy to have saved the group. However, Hyunmin, on the contrary, was angered by the mere sight of the mercenary, which he immediately demonstrated. The hero is very hot-tempered, does not control his emotions, and becomes inflamed by any spark. A traitor! How dare he ask for mercy, just waiting to stab you in the back. The mercenary swears he is not dangerous, but the scientist who followed them is deceiving everyone. He knew that the researcher was watching, but it must be admitted that he did it very covertly. The soldier still suspects the scientist, but the end of the company and the island is near. Even if the professor is telling the truth, he really thinks he is pure and innocent. The researcher had no choice but to find a way to escape from here. The doctor told them about actual slavery, where workers were forced to carry out inhumane experiments. No, they didn't force him. The scientist himself wanted to work on mutations. Moreover, the professor started even more dangerous experiments, but the company itself told the mercenary about this. The mercenary didn't even see the security officer who hired him. So how can that approach inspire confidence? The soldier doesn't know what to answer. Meanwhile, an explosion occurs nearby. Tae asks what just happened. The roar came from there, straight from the laboratory. The doctor said 2 words in resignation. The island's reset. What the hell is behind this name? You need to tell others what the company's plan is, and what they are putting into practice. Island reset is initiated in case of an emergency, and is a last resort. Soon, all laboratories and other buildings will be destroyed to erase any evidence. The research organizers intend to wipe the island and all life from the face of the earth. Before the professor could finish speaking, flying monsters rushed towards the group. No, they flew past, but the mercenary still panics. He calls on the others to run away immediately. There was another explosion, and indeed, after a few seconds, a shockwave flew towards the heroes. There's a bunker ahead, there's nowhere to go, I'll have to run in there. But will the doors withstand the blast wave? The soldier is scared why it exploded earlier than planned. Then we will have to act, right here and now. Tahi screamed at what the soldier was doing. Initially, he wanted to gently pressure the guy into giving him the phone. So, the company decided to blow everything up here as soon as possible. The soldier has no choice. He has also been through a lot, so he can't just leave. Hyunmin is not going to put up with someone else's insolence. This is not why he survived on the cursed island. With the help of a smartphone, he will be able to pay for his mother's treatment and get out of the deep end. Not today. The man desperately responds to the chokehold. A sneaky move. He aimed specifically at the wounded leg. The damaged limb would ruin any chances of survival anyway. Hyunmin should have been abandoned. That's it. The hero, just like before, lost control of himself, his eyes full of rage. Tae jumped up to Hyunmin and pulled him, asking him to stop immediately. A bunch of crazy people, come on. Good luck escaping with the doctor. Hyunmin is angry. We can't let the mercenary go. We need to catch him immediately. However, his leg is injured, and it is difficult for him to move, let alone hurry. It looks like the infection is progressing and the blow there caused pain. Why did Tahi stop the guy? Now the mercenary ran away with the phone. The athlete almost killed him. Was it really necessary to stand aside and watch this? The smartphone is no longer needed. They will be able to save themselves thanks to the scientist. Is a phone worth giving up humanity? If a son commits such a crime, how would his mother feel? That degenerate was determined to get rid of the hero. However, the same applies to Hyunmin. The girl is going to get out of here. From this moment on, she will not leave anyone in trouble, will not allow others to die. Tae wants to return to her brothers. She will pull out both Hyunmin and Jinsu. And then it is necessary to expose the gang that started the most dangerous experiments on the island. If the guy has learned this, then it's time to get up. The beauty asks the doctor to show them the way. Going outside now would mean certain death. I would have to go through the underground passage. All buildings are connected to each other. You should go to the laboratory or administration. There are already a bunch of monsters in the last one, so there is only one way. To the laboratory. Hearing a strange stomping sound, the heroes turned around and saw bird-like lizards. The girl reached for the fire axe. She promised to help the guys out, and now she too had to take up arms. There, in ordinary life, her brothers are waiting for her. Tahi is determined there is no way to retreat, and there is simply nowhere to go. She swings her axe desperately, and the monster's blood spurts in all directions. Sample A covered her back in time. The damned move on, hoping to get out alive. Hyunmin continues to sit, lost in thought. The memory of him shaking Seo-hyun off his foot would never leave his mind. The group rushes with all its might towards the unknown. There is a roar and the sound of destruction outside. But now only the laboratory remains relatively safe. But even here the explosions affected the passage. The doctor only had time to point towards the laboratory when a pipe burst above them. Soon everything here too will be destroyed. Another jolt, the source somewhere nearby. What happened to the bridge was definitely due to the explosions. Suddenly everything around shook, and a huge dinosaur appeared out of nowhere. The bridge collapsed. The heroes were lucky to survive, but Hyunmin was left hanging on the edge. The section was literally hanging by a thread. It was about to be torn off. At that moment, the guy again remembered the moment with So-hyun. Grinding, death is near. But desperate Tae slides down to the hero. Grasping the railing, she calls on the guy to give her hand. Their faces are full of horror, his from imminent death, and hers from the dinosaur. But there is something even more nightmarish, right on the giant's tail. Those same mutants, who were once people, devoured part of the body of a still-living reptile. Damn it! The crowd rushed towards Hyunmin, stretching out their disgusting limbs. The remains of the bridge beneath the creatures collapse, dragging them down with them. The reptile is dead, its body is bleeding, but where is Tae? Luckily, they fell onto a ledge. Why did the heroine help him, risking her own life? Why didn't she make this sacrifice? Besides, his leg is injured, so many reasons to throw away the ballast. Tae promised that they would all get out together. Why does she try so hard for others? Even if she continues like this, she will not be repaid for her kindness. And now she put her life on the line for the hero. Tae doesn't ask for gratitude for saving him. It's not about mutual benefit. His life is as priceless as hers. A touching scene. Even the monsters gazed at it from the water. The nightmarish creatures survived and are swimming towards the people. The creature, ahead of the others, approached the girl closely. Tae closed her eyes, preparing for a horrific death. But Jinsu had a different opinion about the situation. Yes, he cut down one, but there are a whole bunch of them. Not only Jinsu, but also the white-haired mutant came to the rescue. 2 minutes earlier, he was just a spectator. The professor is not particularly upset that 2 of the group fell. It's time to move on. Jinsu asks in an ominous voice how to get down. Yes, it can be done, but could those 2 have survived? Specimen A objected. They definitely didn't die. He can smell them, right underneath him. Then we need to go. And immediately, every second can cost too much. But why did Jinsu come down here? The whole point is that the heroine also extended her hand in the most difficult moment. Meanwhile, the professor also reached them, but through the passage. The creaking castle blocked the way for the monsters. Phew, I can breathe a sigh of relief for now. And how does the scientist do all this so skillfully, despite having vision problems? The professor says that he has been here for a very long time, which is why he is able to navigate in space. He's glad everything is okay. His lab is right above them. Along the way, you will be able to examine Hyunmin's leg. What? His limb will be cured. How is that possible? The lab is still intact. The manipulations with the leg will not take long, just to administer the medicine. You have to wait, but only a little while. A frightening situation. Why did the scientist leave them? Why couldn't they go together? Suddenly Sample A ran somewhere, but the professor told them to wait. Seriously, why did he rush there? Huge cylindrical containers, in an incomprehensible liquid, the bodies of animals. Were they really subjected to experiments? Countless collars with tags marked with the letter B. Type B, what is this place? Animals in huge flasks, a strange device in front of them. A mercenary emerged from the shadows, believing that horrific creatures were being created here. How did the man end up in this place? This is the real face of this island. People classified as Class B were injected with the drugs and then melted down. The professor didn't report any such manipulations, did he? They melted people down to turn them into dinosaurs. Tahi can't believe such cruel experiments. Therefore, the dinosaurs they encountered were formerly humans. Many of those identified as Type B became the resource for the creation of the reptiles. Others were classified as C and turned into plant food for dinosaurs. All this horror begins with the injection of the drug. Here Tahi remembered the words of the scientist who went for a certain remedy. What does Class A mean then? The white-haired mutant wants to know who he is? Meanwhile, the researcher had already taken Hyunmin away with him. He asks the hero to sit here, and he will go get the medicine. Type A was the result of crossbreeding humans and dinosaurs derived from representatives of Type B. After being told that this was a new kind of mutant, the soldier dropped to one knee. What happened? Where did all that blood come from on the man's back? Monsters are everywhere. The laboratory is teeming with them. The group is doomed to die. An unsuspecting Hyunmin sits in the darkest place, hearing footsteps approaching. But it was not a scientist who came, but Jinsu. Hyunmin wants to cure his leg, but that won't happen. He needs to lose the limb. The hero is scared to death, but not because of the Avenger. The guy is trying to report the danger. Jinsu only had time to turn around, and Hyunmin, with an inhuman jerk, pushed him away from the monster. The giant creature was very agile and grabbed the guy in an instant. Hyunmin had no choice but to grab Jinsu's hand. Suddenly his fingers loosened. The creature pulled Jinsu towards itself and opened its mouth. Hyunmin didn't abandon his partner at all. He managed to pick up the axe, and then channeled all his despair into the blow. This is not the time to sit around. You need to get up and run. Jinsu heard Hyunmin fall and immediately turned around. The guy can't take it anymore. He needs to be left behind. and Jinsu should run to the others. The athlete apologizes for the times he thought it was rational to leave the guy. He swears that at first he did not want to harm others, much less make other people's victims. What an inopportune moment for Jinsu to stop and do nothing. The axe is stuck in the neck, but the monster either does not feel pain or is only possessed by the desire to eat. Hyunmin is shocked. He noticed the mutant at the last moment, without having time to do anything. The creature grabbed the guy by the head. Her senses were so heightened that she noticed a silhouette in the passageway. The situation is stalemate. The only option is to escape from the laboratory as quickly as possible. But where did Jinsu and Hyunmin go? Where the hell are they? There's a lot of blood. It leads straight into a dark corridor. Sample A sniffed and could detect a trace of them. The blood leads exactly to where the familiar smell comes from. The spot does not break, and the heroes came to some kind of installation through it. Connected to it are unknown individuals in lab coats, whose bodies are wrapped in bandages. Tahe carefully approached one of them. It was clear from his badge that he was a scientist. Yes, indeed, there are researchers sitting here, but that professor mentioned that the company killed all the employees. And what is this installation with a huge eye and hoses? The mercenary has no idea about her. It seems the doctor was planning something of his own without informing the sponsor. The girl looked behind the unit and saw a nightmarish picture. There are Hyunmin and Jinsu. Most likely the guys were dragged there by the monsters themselves. That's it. Now it's the end. Irrevocable. But wait, what's there? In the middle. Isn't that the doctor himself? Finally, they saw it all with their own eyes. The beauty asked what was going on here, but the monsters attacked them. All it takes is a little bit of vitality, so there's no need to strain yourself. The procedure will not harm. It is not dangerous. There is nothing to be afraid of. His colleagues who have undergone something similar. What about the girl's eyes? What condition are they in? His body started to rot from them, which is very inconvenient. And then Sample A started to work. However, he only managed to say one thing, so that the others would run away. The frenzied creatures rushed at the white-haired man, biting his flesh. But the specimen managed to break free, take the girl by the hand, and run away together with her and the soldier. Suddenly he fell to the floor. Tae tries to lift him up to see if he can move on. He has lost a lot of blood, and they are surrounded by creatures created by the doctor from people. They are definitely dead, but the girl does not believe in a fatal outcome. There must be a way out. Where did it come from? It crept up to Tae so quietly and lifted her up. The rest of the mutants also rushed here. The monsters around scream louder and louder. Horror grips the heroes from head to toe. The dinosaurs in the cages are going crazy, making all sorts of sounds. Suddenly the bars were broken and the creatures burst out. What happens to Sample A? His gaze has become completely empty. So the corporation's experiments ended successfully. Something incomprehensible is definitely happening to the white-haired man. Why is he overcome with rage? Meanwhile, the giant has no time for people. Reptiles are attacking from all sides. The specimen's body changes before our eyes, and its skin becomes covered in colored spots. While the reptiles continued their bloodthirsty feast, Specimen A lost consciousness and fell to the floor. He is a representative of the new species that the company wanted to create. They had previously created dinosaurs, but they also needed someone who could control the reptiles. Perhaps now is the perfect moment to escape while chaos reigns all around. Okay, then we need to get Jinsu and Hyunmin out, and then get out of the lab. There is absolutely no time to save them. She had to keep her word at all costs, and yet they decided to go further together. But suddenly Lee Dahi felt like she was going crazy from what she saw. It was a new Class A monster, and it was unclear how it was different from other monsters. And Lee Dahi removed the electronic collar from him. After all, he was a man, at least for her. They needed to get away from this island as soon as possible. But it was still necessary to free my friends. Hal looked at Henman and thought about what makes him so handsome. But they all had to hurry. Suddenly, one of the boy's legs became covered in terrible blisters. He had to admit that he had reached into his bag and placed a piece of grass on Hen's leg. And for his own salvation, he had to sincerely apologize. After all, they had to move on. Suddenly, the guy was swallowed by a huge monster. But trying to escape was pointless. Because this is an experiment and it's all over. A perfect specimen was created. Not a fake. It was a new race of people. Tae also had to be perfect. A huge, angry dinosaur wanted to eat her. He wanted to know who he was to her and what the meaning of his existence was. After all, he sincerely believed that he was the boss here. The dinosaur let out a deafening cry, and another monster bit into his body. It's all because someone was such a loser. Passive people were a marriage to be destroyed. And if Tae didn't want to give him life force, she had to become a newbie. She had to accept this evolution. But suddenly everyone was distracted by terrible sounds. The monsters tried to take possession of him. Suddenly a dinosaur attacked them, and it was a great moment to escape, but it seemed useless. Suddenly the dinosaur grabbed him to prevent him from interfering with Tahi's escape. Turning around, they saw everything with their own eyes. Now was not the time to sort things out, and it was necessary to run on. And the three of them were able to leave the building and find themselves in the courtyard. And they realized that the call from the phone started to go through. The explosion broke the device, blocking the signal. They were able to call and find out where the yacht pier was. Everyone was here and it was time to head south. And they went in search of a pier. Meanwhile, what was left of the scientist was crawling towards the edge of the pit, and the liquid began to absorb it. All three approached the huge gates, which were closed, as the laboratory was carefully guarded. It was necessary to find the control room and open the gate. In one of the rooms, Tahi found a first aid kit, and she asked the guy to let her examine his wound. He turned his back to her and took off his t-shirt. It was even worse than she thought. He endured the pain, saying that everything was fine, because he needed to get out of there quickly. At this time, the second one's leg was being eaten away by huge green blisters. But Tahi didn't pay any attention to him, continuing to bandage. In the first aid kit, he saw a syringe with medicine, and he asked the others to wait for him here. He said the control room was upstairs, and he would go up to open it. I found the right room and saw through the window how the others approached the gate. He had already brought the magnetic key to the lock when someone appeared behind him. I looked out the window with him, and then the monster turned around and ran away. The guy shouted out the window to the others to run, because the monster was heading towards them. But suddenly the monster returned and was ready to bite into his neck. But Tahe arrived in time and appeared with a huge stone in her hands to strike. The monster's relatives were already rushing to the cry. At this point, the magnetic lock worked and the gate began to open and close again. They had to hurry to get out. I didn't make it in time, literally at the last second, and they were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief because they were able to get out. The monsters were breaking down the gates and we had to hurry. Running with a sore leg was not easy, and the others were not going to look back and wait for him. But Hyunmin decided that he couldn't die after going through all this hell. Tahi was worried about whether he could cope. Moving forward, they saw a pier with a moored ship. Salvation was already close, but suddenly Hyunmin began to feel worse. He could go further. After all, he had already been told that it needed to be amputated. But suddenly the guy himself began to lose consciousness and collapse to the ground. The screams of monsters were heard behind the trees. And Hyunmin decided to inject his friend with medicine from the first aid kit. And he injected him with a painkiller that he had saved for himself. This way he can now make his way to the ship. Hyunmin decided to distract the dinosaurs so that the others could get to the ship. Tahi couldn't believe what he was saying, but the guy just shouted for them to go away. And at that moment a huge dinosaur appeared from behind the bushes. Hyunmin got his attention by shouting that he really wanted to eat his leg, but Dinosaur suddenly turned around and ran back. And then Tahe realized that the dinosaur had left because of the smell of the wound. At this time, her comrade began to come to his senses. The girl shouted that everyone was in bad shape now and they needed to get out to see a doctor. But Hyunmin, looking at his leg, said that he was wrong and that it would be better for the two of them to leave him and save themselves. Tahi insisted that the dinosaurs were just running past now and it was not the time to give up. But Hyunmin didn't think he deserved it. After all, it was he who led everyone to a dangerous place, and his conscience did not allow him to survive when others were dead. But Tahi reminded him that his mother was waiting for him. The comrade, having come to his senses, suddenly began to say that he had already warned them that if he interfered, they would leave him. But suddenly he saw a syringe with painkiller on the ground next to him, and if it weren't for Hyunmin, they would have abandoned them there long ago. He needed to get up urgently. Suddenly seeing himself in the reflection of a puddle, it seemed to him that his eyes had changed color. Tahi hurried the man he needed to get up quickly and leave here. A loud cracking sound was heard, attracting the attention of a group of infected scientists. An explosion thundered, and instead of a gate, a huge hole gaped, and crowds of infected could now pass through. And along with them, the doctor, who no longer looked like a human being at all. The heroes saw all this. The military man looked in amazement at the monsters getting closer and closer. The monsters that had escaped were devouring the remains of dead bodies, and the entire road was covered in blood. There were too many of them. It would be impossible to pass by them unnoticed. Although there was one way, there was a wire lying on the ground. By walking along it, you could get to the switch. By turning on a loud siren, it would be possible to distract the monsters, and then there would be a chance for salvation. The soldier said that Hyunmin would go. Since the switch is far away, there will be no need to run back, and Hyunmin will be able to return peacefully. But if he doesn't catch up with them after he turns on the siren, the soldier won't be able to help him anymore. Hyunmin realized that this was his only chance and walked along the wire. Tahe looked after him with alarm. She believed that he would cope. Suddenly they noticed that a crowd of infected scientists ran in the direction where Hyunmin had gone. The soldier pulled Tae along with him. She didn't understand why, since Hyunmin hadn't returned yet. Meanwhile, Hyunmin himself managed to reach the wall where the switch should have been hanging. but it wasn't there. He turned around and realized that his injured leg had attracted monsters and a huge dinosaur that stood in the forest thicket. Meanwhile, the soldier ran and pulled the screaming Tahe along with him. She was finally able to pull her hand out of the man's tight grip. The soldier stopped. He did not want to answer questions about Hyunmin. He looked at Tahe, and suddenly a monster's head with a long neck appeared behind her. A huge hand grabbed Tahe, its mouth opening to eat the girl. Suddenly something flew into the monster's head. It was the upper part of a mutilated corpse. The heroes saw Hyunmin rushing towards them. He shouted at them to run away. The soldier looked at him in amazement. He thought that Hyunmin was already dead. Hyunmin didn't come alone. A huge Tyrannosaurus was running after him. He was angry. The long-necked monster and the Tyrannosaurus locked eyes. The first one grabbed the dinosaur by the neck with his ugly hand. He got distracted and threw Tahe. The girl fell from his hand to the ground. The monster began to hit the Tyrannosaurus on the head, without loosening its grip on the neck. The Tyrannosaurus finally knocked the monster onto its back, towered over it, and opened its toothy mouth. He grabbed him by the head and tore it out along with his long neck. Hyunmin ran up to the wounded girl, who had a gaping wound on her head. The dinosaur finally turned his attention to the heroes. He ran at them fiercely, but suddenly a mutated doctor appeared and pinned the dinosaur to the ground with his hand. Hyunmin and the military man looked at this scene with their mouths open. He found them thanks to the smell. The heroes were unable to hide. The doctor ordered the infected scientists to attack, and they crowded together and pressed the dinosaur to the ground, biting and digging their nails into it. He came up close to Hyunmin and the soldier, towered over them, and suggested that they stop running and become one. The doctor's body consisted of dozens of infected bodies, and behind him the dinosaur was finally able to break free. Several pieces fell off the doctor's body, turning into freaks that walked towards the escaped Tyrannosaurus. He quickly dealt with them and went to the doctor, at which time the heroes decided to escape while the opportunity presented itself. They ran through dense jungle towards the ship. Finally, we ran out onto the pier and saw the ship. The doctor sensed this. He was disappointed that they still hoped to escape. His eyes turned a sickly orange as he grabbed the dinosaur by the jaw. He pulled her apart and tore her head into 2 pieces. Taking a closer look at the people on deck, the soldier, Hyunjin and Tae realized that they were all infected, and all hope was gone. But there was no choice, and they ran inside the ship. Now they were indoors. The soldier was trying to catch his breath and cursing the doctor. Tahi told him that it was useless to try to get out on their own. They needed to call another rescue team. But there was no time, because it would take at least 2 hours to send a signal, and for help to arrive, they would die faster than they could wait for help. But Tahi insisted on her own. The doctor seemed to hear them. He was surprised that they were not going to give up even knowing what happened to the previous rescue team. While the heroes were talking, the infected managed to find them. But in the hold where they ran, there was only Hyunmin. This surprised the doctor. He thought that Tai and the military man abandoned him. Hyunmin was not going to give up, even though the doctor tried to convince him that he couldn't escape. But no one was planning to run away. The door to the ship opened. Hyunmin and the doctor stood face to face. Behind Hyunmin, a huge Tyrannosaurus Rex appeared, one of the experiments called the Alpha Tyrannosaurus. Tahe opened the door and told the doctor to try fighting someone equal to him. Not long before, when all the guys were in the hold, Tahe asked the military man if the Alpha Tyrannosaurus was here. He was surprised and didn't understand why she was asking. Tahe had a plan to kill all the infected and the doctor with the help of a dinosaur. She will be the bait, and the men will have to open the door. Hyunmin didn't understand why he wasn't the bait. Tahe explained that she felt better than he or the soldier. Hyunmin suddenly remembered Sunghyun and Jinsu. He must be the bait. No one else must die because of him. Tahe asked him not to be stupid. His leg would not allow him to run if he needed to. But Hyunmin didn't speak, he asked her. He needed to do at least something that would help the team. The doctor admitted it was a clever plan, but he was sure it wouldn't work. The battle continued. The Alpha Tyrannosaurus clamped its teeth on the doctor's neck and almost bit it through. The doctor became furious. His mouth grew even larger, and dozens of hands appeared from it. They grabbed the dinosaur and pulled it inside. The doctor absorbed the dinosaur, but it was able to break through his flesh and escape. Hyunmin lay unconscious among the rubble. Tae found him. She looked at the lying Hyunmin in amazement. Suddenly a soldier ran up to her from behind, picked her up in his arms and ran. Tahi tried to break free. He contacted the rescuers. A helicopter was supposed to arrive for them. It carried Tahe away from the battle to save him. Rescuers will fly to the northern part of the island. They needed to be there as soon as possible. Tae kicked on his shoulder. She wanted to save Hyunmin. The soldier threw her to the ground. She finally looked at him. His eyes turned slightly orange. He suddenly became furious because she did not accept his help. His leg swung out to hit the girl. And if it weren't for Samson, who managed to hit him in the back with an axe, then Tahe, most likely, would not have survived. Samson looked at her and asked her to return the phone. Tahe said that he was with a military man. Samson began to search the body and delightedly found his phone. He needed the files taken on the island. Tahe backed away in horror. She slowly turned to leave, but Samson noticed. His eyes were also orange, and he told Tahe with a crazy smile that the content needed to be removed. He tore the military axe from the body and swung it to strike. But before he could do it, Hyunmin knocked him off his feet and they fell to the ground. Samson's eyes were seething with anger. He was clearly not happy to see Hyunmin. Samson's hatred towards Hyunmin began back in high school. Hyunmin always looked down on him, his eyes filled with nothing but contempt. Samson grabbed the axe again, but Hyunmin's strike was faster. In high school, Samson wanted to be friends with Hyunmin, so he always stuck around his group. Hyunmin's friends found this amusing, but he himself didn't care much. He didn't even notice, and they didn't interfere out of pity. These are the very words Samson once heard at school. He was laughed at. It broke his heart and gave rise to hatred. He punched Hyunmin in the face. He knocked me to the ground and began to deliver blow after blow. In a fit of rage, he didn't understand what he was doing. He took revenge not only on Hyunmin, but also on the entire company he brought to the island. Samson raised his axe again, this time for the final blow. Tahe rushed to stop him, but the soldier was faster. He came too. His eyes turned bright orange. He hissed at Samson to give him the phone. Tae ran up to Hyunmin. He was sitting and wiping the blood from his face with his hand. It was necessary to leave immediately. While the soldier was busy with Samson lying on the ground, the soldier sank his teeth into his neck. Blood spurted out heavily, and Samson screamed in pain and horror. Samson realized that he could not die like this, and struck the soldier straight in the head with an axe. Then he got up and started looking for his phone again. He was lying very close. Samson, like a madman, kept repeating that he would now become great. His screams attracted the dinosaur birds, one of which now emerged from behind the trees and looked at him with glowing eyes. Tae took Hyunmin's arm and led him down the road. Samson was not afraid of birds. He had walked so far that he was now invincible. He thought so when he met one bird, but now there were more and more of them. One of them finally made a lunge and tried to grab Samson, but he squeezed her throat with one hand. His eyes burned not with fear, but with rage mixed with madness. He threw the bird under the paws of its relatives. Samson did not understand that the animals did not understand his threats, and even if he had an axe in his hands, there were more dinosaurs. They attacked him in a whole flock. He still had no intention of dying like that, but the birds didn't care. His body was torn apart by sharp beaks, but he managed to press the broadcast button on his phone. He was talking some crazy nonsense, and the audience was watching. They tore at his flesh. The last thing left of Samson is a hand holding a phone. Tae and Hyunmin walked along the road to the helicopter. They finally arrived, and there were 3 men standing next to the helicopter. One of them, seeing Hyunmin's condition, ordered a stretcher to be brought. He didn't understand why only 2 came out, because there were many more people on the island. Tahe's gaze suddenly became too sad. Everything became clear in an instant. The rescuer understood everything. He told Taka to follow him, but then a bullet pierced his head. A squad of Omega fighters arrived at the helipad site. They surrounded Tahe and ordered him to stay put. One of the fighters contacted someone and said that the bomb did not explode, but they saw the doctor's hand. The fighters stood with their weapons ready for battle. One of them gave the order to kill everyone. A creature suddenly attacked him from behind. The soldiers opened fire on the crowd of infected. One of the soldiers reported that a second mutation had occurred, and the operation had failed, and a giant infected appeared behind him. One of the rescuers shouted for everyone to quickly run to the helicopter. Tahe ran up to the helicopter that had already taken off and almost climbed into it. But one of the monsters grabbed her by the leg. Hyunmin managed to take her hand and pulled her along with him. He managed to pull Tahe into the helicopter. The pilot asked if everything was in place. Suddenly, the face of a monster appeared behind the glass of his cabin. It was a giant dinosaur with a human face. The rescuers looked on in amazement at the carnage taking place on the ground. Hyunmin leaned back in his seat, tired. Tahe looked at him with gratitude. One of the rescuers asked them if there were any people they could contact, and he handed them the phone. Hyunmin immediately grabbed it and called his mother. He cried when he heard her familiar voice. Mom said that the issue with the hospital has been resolved. His close friend Sha-rin helped her. His mother told Hyunmin to help people in need, and those words brought pain to his heart. Tahe called her brothers. She couldn't hold back her tears either. The island that brought them so much pain is now empty. Minsek's body still lay in a pile of vile remains. In one of the underground rooms lay A-hyun. Next to him stood a huge flask with a body inside. It was the doctor. He opened his eyes. The flask opened and his body, not at all like a human one, crawled out of there. He crawled to the button and pressed it. This activated a massive bomb hidden inside the island that no longer existed. 2 schoolboys laughed and watched Samson's recent short stream. Then they started discussing Tay's recent stream, in which she told incredible stories about some dinosaurs. Suddenly, the internet stopped working. One of the boys looked out the window next to which he was sitting. He saw a strange man walking below. A boy like him, for some reason, moved